8 hidden signs you're attractive to women. Most men miss all of them. Psychology tricks. Sometimes the heart sees what is invisible to the eye. That truth matters more than most men realize, because at this very moment, while you are watching this, there is likely a woman in your life who feels drawn to you, maybe even deeply drawn to you, and you do not see it yet. Maybe it is one woman. Maybe it is more than one. But the signals are there. They have been there. Quiet, repeated, and far more obvious than you think once you learn what to look for. The problem is not that attraction is absent. The problem is that most men have never been taught how to recognize it. They miss the patterns. They overlook the small moments. They dismiss the very signs that could transform the way they see themselves and the way they carry themselves around women from this day forward. By the end of this video, that changes. You are going to see your past interactions differently. You are going to notice things you used to ignore. And one sign in particular, number 6, will hit harder than the rest because it happens when you are not even looking. It happens behind your back. It is the signal you were never expected to catch. And once you understand it, so many confusing moments from your life will suddenly make sense. So do not rush through this. Do not jump ahead. Every sign connects to the next, and only when you see the full pattern will you understand just how often attraction has been showing up in your life without you noticing it. Sign 1. The engineered proximity. There's a quiet truth about attraction that most men completely overlook, and it begins long before a single word is spoken, long before any obvious signal appears, long before anything you would normally recognize as interest, because attraction, especially when you understand female psychology, rarely announces itself loudly. It reveals itself in patterns, in positioning, in subtle decisions that don't look like decisions at all, and that brings us to the first sign, engineered proximity. Picture this clearly. She's in a crowded room, 40 people, multiple conversations, endless options for where she could stand, who she could talk to, where she could direct her attention, and yet she keeps appearing near you, not directly in front of you, not in a way that demands attention, but close enough, within your space, within your awareness. That is not random. That is not coincidence. That is intentional behavior wrapped in plausible deniability, one of the most powerful psychology tricks rooted deep in female psychology. A woman who feels drawn to you will not always approach you directly. Don't expect that. Don't wait for that. That is where most men fail. Instead, she adjusts her environment. She moves herself into your orbit. She creates opportunities without ever making it obvious. She'll walk past you to grab a drink she didn't urgently need. She'll shift conversations just to be closer to your position. She'll place herself where your eyes can find her without effort. And every action comes with a built-in excuse. I was just grabbing something. I was just talking to a friend. I just like this spot. That is the brilliance of it. It's never direct. It's never exposed. But the pattern never lies. 1 time, ignore it. 2 times, pay attention. 3 times, that is a decision. And here's where you must shift your mindset if you truly want to understand how to fall in love in a grounded, intelligent way. Because attraction is not about chasing obvious signals, it's about recognizing consistent behavior. Don't be passive. Don't sit there waiting for a perfect moment to land in your lap. That moment is already happening. You're just not seeing it. Most men miss this because they're conditioned to expect clarity, to expect bold moves, to expect a woman to step forward and make it undeniable. But that's not how attraction usually works. Not in real life. Not in subtle, emotionally intelligent dynamics. Women don't always come to you. They come near you. That is the test. That is the invitation. They close the distance halfway and then pause. They wait. Not out of hesitation, but out of design. They want to see if you're aware, if you're present, if you have the confidence to take that final step. This is where understanding psychology tricks becomes your advantage. Because once you recognize the pattern, everything changes. You stop second-guessing. You stop overthinking. You start observing. You start noticing how often she reappears in your space. You start seeing the invisible thread pulling her closer each time. And then you act. Not aggressively, not awkwardly, but calmly, confidently, naturally. You acknowledge her presence. You open the conversation. You bridge the gap she intentionally left open for you. That is how attraction flows when you align with it instead of resisting it. And this applies everywhere, at work, at social gatherings, in everyday environments where people cross paths without words. You'll begin to see women placing themselves near you, adjusting their positions, aligning their movements with yours in ways that seem casual on the surface but are deeply intentional underneath. This is female psychology in motion, quiet, strategic, elegant. And if you ignore it, you miss opportunity after opportunity without ever realizing it. So don't be most men. Don't sit there waiting for certainty. Don't wait for loud signals. Be aware. Be present. Be the man who notices what others overlook, because attraction often whispers before it ever speaks. And when you understand that, when you truly see it, you begin to understand not just how to fall in love, but how connection actually begins in silence, in proximity, in those small, repeated choices that reveal far more than words ever could. Sign 2, the voice shift. This is where things get quiet, almost invisible, yet incredibly revealing. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, and that's exactly why most men miss it. But once you learn to hear it, you can't ignore it again. When a woman feels drawn to a man, her voice begins to change, not in words, but in feeling. The texture softens, the warmth increases, the pace slows down, as if she's no longer rushing through the moment, but settling into it. That is not random. That is biology responding before logic has time to interfere. Research in vocal psychology makes this clear. Women unconsciously adjust their tone when speaking to someone they're attracted to, not because they plan it, not because they rehearse it. It just happens. And here's the truth. This is one of the purest signals you will ever receive because it's almost impossible to fake consistently. Now listen carefully. Don't focus on what she says. That is surface level. Words can be chosen, filtered, even manipulated. Instead, focus on how she says it. Does her voice soften when she speaks to you? Does it carry a kind of warmth that feels different from how she speaks to others? Maybe she slows down slightly, giving her words space to breathe. Maybe her laughter comes easier, lighter, more natural, as if she's not holding anything back. That is the moment where her guard drops. That is where her true emotional response leaks through. You must pay attention to contrast. Observe how she talks to other people. Notice the baseline. Then compare it to how she speaks to you. Is there a shift? A subtle change in tone, rhythm, or energy? That difference is everything. Don't overanalyze. Don't force meaning where there is none, but also don't ignore what is clearly there. A high-value man does not chase signals. He recognizes them. He stays calm. He observes. He understands that attraction often whispers before it ever speaks loudly. And this voice shift, it's a whisper, a quiet signal wrapped in softness and ease. When a woman feels safe and drawn to you, her nervous system relaxes. That relaxation shows up in her voice. It becomes warmer, more inviting, more fluid. That is not performance. That is response. And that response is triggered by your presence, your masculine energy, the way you carry yourself without needing to prove anything. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever noticed a woman speaking differently to you, but you brushed it off? Maybe you thought, that's just how she is. Maybe you missed the pattern. Don't make that mistake again, because the voice doesn't lie. It can't. Facial expressions can be controlled. Words can be edited. But vocal tone is deeply tied to emotion and physiology. It reacts instantly. It reveals what the mind hasn't yet decided to admit. That is why this sign is so powerful and so overlooked. You must train your awareness, not in a tense analytical way, but in a calm, grounded way. Be present in conversations. Listen beyond the surface. Feel the energy behind the words. A man who can do this begins to attract women without effort, because he is no longer guessing, he is understanding. And understanding builds confidence. Real confidence, not loud, not forced, quiet, steady, certain. And here's something deeper. When her voice softens around you, it's not just attraction, it's comfort, it's openness, It's a sign that she feels something shift internally when you're near. That is your responsibility to handle with care. Don't rush, don't push, don't try to escalate too quickly. Be the man who can hold that space. Be the man who matches that softness with calm strength. That is how you attract women on a deeper level. That is how masculine energy expresses itself, not through pressure, but through presence. A high-value man understands that attraction is not built in grand gestures alone. It lives in small, almost invisible details. A tone of voice, a pause, a laugh that lingers just a second longer. These are the moments that reveal truth. And when you start noticing them, something changes inside you. You stop doubting. You stop chasing clarity because you begin to see what was always there. So next time you're speaking with her, don't just hear her words. Listen to her voice. Listen to the warmth. Listen to the rhythm. Ask yourself, does it change when she's with you? If the answer is yes, don't ignore it. That is not coincidence. That is connection beginning to form quietly, naturally, without announcement. Be aware, be steady, be the man who notices what others overlook. That is how you step into your power. That is how you become the kind of man who doesn't need to ask if he can attract women, because the answer is already unfolding in the way they speak to him. And if you felt that, if you've ever noticed that subtle shift but didn't trust it, this is your moment to wake up. Drop this in the comments right now. I pay attention to what others overlook, because that's the difference. Most men listen to words. Few men understand energy. Like the video, subscribe for more insight, and remember, attraction isn't always loud, but it always leaves a trace. Sign 3, the gratuitous question. Sign 3, the gratuitous question, is where most men lose the game without even realizing they were being tested in the first place. You're in a casual conversation, nothing special, just surface-level talk. Then suddenly she shifts. She asks something deeper, something more personal, something that wasn't required for the moment. What made you choose that path? What do you actually enjoy outside of work? Have you always thought like that? These are not random. Understand this clearly. Timing reveals intention. She didn't have to go there, but she chose to, and that choice is everything. As Dale Carnegie once said, to be interesting, be interested. When a woman asks deeper questions, she is investing attention. She is opening a door, and attention is the most valuable currency in human interaction. Don't ignore that. Most men brush it off. They say, she's just being nice. No, stop thinking like that. Be sharper, be more aware. A woman who is indifferent keeps things light, safe, and short. She doesn't dig. She doesn't explore. She doesn't expand the conversation. Why? Because she has no reason to, no curiosity, no emotional pull. But when she is interested, she leans in, mentally and emotionally. She wants to understand you. She wants to map you out. She wants to know what drives you, what shapes you, what separates you from every other man she meets. That is not casual. That is intentional. That is investment. And in modern life, where attention is constantly pulled in 1,000 directions, phones buzzing, notifications firing, people distracted, if a woman chooses to focus on you, to ask you questions that go beyond the obvious, that is a signal you cannot afford to miss. This is where old Stoic wisdom comes in. Stay calm. Stay grounded. Don't get overly excited. Don't rush to impress. As Marcus Aurelius taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Control your response. When she asks, answer with clarity. Be direct. Be composed. That is how you demonstrate an iron mind. That is how you show presence. Because here's the truth. Attraction is not built on what you say. It's built on how you carry yourself while saying it. You must understand this. When she asks one question, it might be curiosity. When she asks several, when she consistently pulls the conversation deeper, when she keeps returning with more, now you're seeing a pattern. And patterns don't lie. That's not friendliness. That's interest growing in real time. That's her investing energy into you. And energy is not given freely. It is directed with purpose. So don't waste it. Don't fumble it by giving long, rambling answers. Don't try to impress with too much detail. Be sharp. Be intentional. Say enough, but not everything. Leave space. Let her come back with another question. That is how you keep the dynamic alive. That is how you build momentum. This is Stoicism win in action. Calm confidence, measured responses, emotional discipline. You're not chasing the conversation, you're guiding it. You're not reacting, you're responding with control. And that control is attractive, very attractive, because most men don't have it. Most men either shut down or overshare. You must do neither. You must operate from an iron mind, steady, aware, unshaken. When she sees that, when she feels that, her curiosity grows even stronger, and curiosity is the seed of attraction. Remember this line, and remember it well. People chase what they don't fully understand but want to explore. That's your advantage. Use it wisely. In today's world, where conversations are shallow and attention spans are short, depth stands out. Depth is rare. And when she chooses to go there with you, it means you've already separated yourself from the crowd. So don't ruin it by acting like everyone else. Stay composed, stay grounded, stay intentional. That is old Stoic wisdom applied to modern attraction. That is how you win without forcing anything. That is how Stoicism win becomes real in your life. And if you've experienced this before, if a woman has asked you questions that felt unnecessary but kept coming back for more, then understand what was really happening. She wasn't just talking, she was investing. And next time, you'll see it clearly. Next time, you'll handle it differently. Next time, you'll move like a man with an iron mind. Sign 4, the detail callback. Sign 4 is what I call the detail callback, and if you miss this, you are missing one of the clearest signals hidden inside female psychology, because this does not happen in the first conversation when everything is surface level and polite. It shows up later, second, third, even the fifth interaction, when time has already tested whether you were just another face or someone who stayed in her mind. And suddenly, she brings up something small you mentioned weeks ago, a random restaurant, a movie you barely described, a minor problem you didn't think mattered. And she asks, "Did you ever try that place?" Or, "How did that situation turn out?" Or she says, "I saw something that reminded me of you." And you need to understand what is really happening here. This is not coincidence. This is not politeness. This is selective memory at work. And selective memory is one of the most powerful psychology tricks embedded in human behavior. Because people remember what emotionally registers, what sparks curiosity, what creates a subtle imprint. And in female psychology, attention is never random. It is earned. It is filtered. It is stored only when a man creates a feeling strong enough to stay. So when she recalls your words, days or weeks later, she is revealing something deeper than attraction. She is showing investment. And that is the foundation of how to fall in love. Because love does not begin with grand gestures. It begins with attention. Quiet, consistent attention. The kind that listens, stores, and returns. So do not brush this off. Do not laugh it away. Do not assume she does this with everyone. She does not. People are overwhelmed with information every single day. Conversations blur together. Faces fade. Details disappear. But the ones that remain are the ones tied to emotional relevance. And that is where you stand if she remembers you, not because your story was extraordinary, not because your words were perfect, but because you made her feel something in that moment. And that feeling anchored the memory. That is the mechanism behind these psychology tricks, simple on the surface, powerful underneath. And you must recognize the pattern, because a man who understands this stops chasing attention and starts creating presence. He stops trying to impress and starts making people feel seen, heard, and slightly intrigued. And here is your instruction. Do not ignore when a woman recalls your details. Acknowledge it. Appreciate it. But stay grounded. Do not overreact. Do not suddenly lean in with neediness. Be calm. Be steady. Be the man who expects to be remembered, because that is how to fall in love without losing control. You create space for her to invest while you remain centered. And when you combine awareness of female psychology with disciplined behavior, You begin to see these moments for what they are: signals, not guarantees, invitations, not conclusions. And you must respond with clarity, not confusion. Because the truth is simple: if she remembers you, you matter. And if you matter, you have already crossed a threshold most men never even notice. So pay attention. Sharpen your awareness. Use these psychology tricks not to manipulate, but to understand, not to chase, but to position yourself correctly. Because the man who sees what others miss is the man who naturally stands out. And in the quiet game of attraction, the smallest details often speak the loudest. If this hit you, don't brush it off. This is one of the clearest signs you matter more than you think. A woman doesn't remember small details by accident. She remembers because you stayed on her mind. That's attention. That's investment. That's real interest. So don't doubt it. Recognize it. Act with awareness, not hesitation. If you're starting to see it clearly, like this video, subscribe for more sharp insights, and drop this in the comments right now to lock it in. If she remembers the little things, I know I matter. Sign 5. The protective disclosure. Sign 5 is what most men completely misunderstand, and because of that, they miss one of the clearest signals of genuine attraction: the protective disclosure. At some point, without warning, she shifts the conversation away from the surface and into something real: a fear, an insecurity, a past mistake, something personal. Not small talk, not polite conversation. Real. And you need to understand this clearly. This is not random. This is not casual. This is vulnerability. And vulnerability is trust. A woman does not open that door for just anyone. She doesn't share her inner world because she's bored or because the moment feels convenient. She does it because something about you makes her feel safe. That is the signal. That is the moment. When she lowers her guard, it is not weakness. It is selective openness. It means she sees something in you that feels steady, grounded, and emotionally secure. That is the energy of a high-value man. Not loud, not performative, calm, present, unshaken. But here's where most men fail. They think this is the time to impress, to fix, to analyze, to give advice. Don't. That is not what she is asking for. She is not handing you a problem to solve. She is offering you a piece of herself to hold, and how you hold it determines everything that comes next. After she shares, she watches you closely, not obviously, but carefully. She's reading your face, your tone, your reaction. She's asking silent questions. Will you judge me? Will you pull away? Will you see me differently now? Or the most important one, will you stay the same? That is the test, not of your charm, not of your words, of your character. You must understand this. Attraction deepens not when you say the perfect thing, but when you become emotionally steady in moments that matter. A high-value man does not flinch when things get real. He doesn't get uncomfortable and rush to change the subject. He doesn't turn her vulnerability into a lecture. He stays grounded. He listens. He accepts. That is masculine energy in its purest form, calm strength in the presence of emotion. Think about it. Anyone can be fun when things are light. Anyone can be engaging when the conversation is easy. But when someone reveals something personal, the atmosphere changes. It becomes heavier, more honest, more human. And most men don't know how to handle that shift. They panic internally. They try to regain control. They break the moment. Don't be that man. Be the man who holds the space. Be the man who doesn't need to react immediately. Silence, when used correctly, is powerful. A simple, grounded response, "I appreciate you sharing that," can carry more weight than a long speech. Why? Because it shows presence. It shows respect. It shows that you're not overwhelmed. That is how you attract women on a deeper level, not through performance, but through emotional stability. And here's the deeper truth. When she shares something vulnerable, she is not just revealing her story, she is inviting you into her trust. That is a privilege, not an opportunity to prove yourself, not a stage to showcase your intelligence, a moment to demonstrate your consistency, your grounded nature, your ability to stay calm when things are real. Don't overreact. Don't underreact. Stay centered. That is the balance most men never learn. because what she is really measuring is this. Are you the same man when things get real as you are when things are easy? Or do you shift? Do you become awkward, distant, or overly intense? Consistency is attractive. Predictable emotional strength is attractive. That is what defines a high-value man. And understand this clearly, if you handle this moment right, something changes. Her attraction doesn't just stay the same, it deepens. Because now, in her mind, you are no longer just a man she enjoys talking to. You are a man she feels safe with. And safety, when combined with masculine energy, is one of the most powerful forces in attraction. So don't chase the moment. Don't try to control it. Let it unfold. Listen more than you speak. Be present more than you perform. That is how you attract women who are not just interested, but invested. Remember this line, because it will guide you in every interaction from this point forward. I don't react to her vulnerability. I honor it with calm strength. Sign 6. The third-party investigation. Sign 6, the third-party investigation, is where things get quiet, subtle, and incredibly revealing, because this is the moment attraction steps out of the obvious and into strategy. This is happening behind your back, outside your direct awareness, and if you're not paying attention, you will miss it entirely. Yet it may be one of the clearest indicators that you truly attract women on a deeper level. One day, out of nowhere, her friend starts engaging you more than usual, asking simple questions, smiling a little longer, keeping the conversation going just a bit more than necessary. Another day, a coworker casually drops a question. So, are you seeing anyone? As if it's nothing, as if it just came up randomly, but it didn't. And you must understand that this is not coincidence. This is coordination. This is information gathering. This is quiet curiosity, backed by intention. As the old saying often attributed to Sun Tzu reminds us, all warfare is based on deception. And while this is not a battlefield, the principle still applies. People rarely reveal their true intentions directly when emotions are involved. Instead, they move indirectly, carefully, intelligently. That is exactly what is happening here. She is interested, but she is also cautious. She wants clarity without exposure. She wants truth without risk. So she sends others. They observe you. They ask about your life. They listen to your answers. They study how you speak when she is not present. Are you consistent? Are you respectful? Are you someone worth investing emotion into? This is not surface-level attraction anymore. This is evaluation. And you must recognize it for what it is. In modern life, where distractions are endless and attention is divided, people don't invest this kind of effort unless there is genuine interest. No one organizes quiet investigations for someone they feel neutral about. So, if you notice this pattern, if people around her suddenly take an interest in your personal life, your relationship status, your character, do not dismiss it. Do not brush it off. That is your signal. That is your confirmation. And here is where your mindset matters. You must not react with confusion or overexcitement. Be steady, be grounded. Be the man who doesn't need to chase validation because he already operates from self-respect. This is where old Stoic wisdom becomes your advantage. Stay calm, stay consistent, stay in control of your behavior, whether she is watching or not, because in truth, you are always being observed indirectly. As Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. That is your instruction, not performance, not pretending, being. Because those third parties, they are not just listening to your words, they are measuring your energy, your presence, your iron mind. And this is where most men fail. They act differently depending on who is in front of them. They become inconsistent, unpredictable, and that breaks trust before it even begins. Don't do that. Be the same man in every room. That is how you win. That is Stoicism win in action. You don't chase attention, you attract it through stability. You don't explain your value, you demonstrate it through behavior. And when you operate like this, something powerful happens. The reports that go back to her are strong, clear, and compelling. He's solid. He's focused. He's not trying too hard. That is what builds attraction at a level most men never reach. Remember this, attraction grows in silence more than in noise. It builds in observation more than in conversation. And when a woman chooses to understand you through others instead of confronting you directly, it means she sees potential worth protecting. That is not a small thing. That is significant. So don't ignore it. Don't overreact to it. Recognize it, understand it, and continue to move with intention. Build your iron mind. Apply old Stoic wisdom. Live in a way that requires no explanation. Because in the end, the strongest position you can hold is this: you are the same man whether she is watching or whether she is asking about you through someone else. That is power. That is clarity. That is how you truly attract women without ever needing to force it. If you're sharp enough to notice this, you're already playing a different game than most men, because most never realize that attraction often happens behind the scenes, through quiet questions and subtle investigations. So don't ignore it. Don't brush it off. Recognize it for what it is: interest moving carefully, intelligently, and intentionally in your direction. Now take control of that awareness, step up with clarity, and position yourself as the man worth knowing. If this opened your eyes, like the video, subscribe for more sharp insight, and drop this in the comments right now to lock it into your mindset. I see what others miss, and I move with confidence. Sign 7. The manufactured excuse to communicate. Sign 7 is what I call the manufactured excuse to communicate, and if you're not paying attention, you'll completely miss the signal hiding in plain sight. She sends you a link, a meme, a random question that doesn't really require your input, something small, something unnecessary, and that's exactly the point. It didn't need to be sent, but she chose to send it anyway. Don't brush that off. Don't assume it's casual. That is intention disguised as coincidence. In female psychology, direct pursuit is often softened, wrapped in subtlety, delivered in a way that protects her pride while still opening the door. She's not just sharing content, she's creating a reason to enter your space. Think about it. If she truly had no interest, there would be silence, no message, no effort. But instead, she finds a doorway, any doorway, to start a conversation. I just thought of you. I wanted your opinion. Simple words, light tone, but underneath there's something deeper, a desire to connect, a desire to be seen by you. This is one of those psychology tricks that reveals more through action than through words. Because when someone consistently creates opportunities to talk to you, it's not random, it's emotional investment in motion. Be aware of the pattern. One message could mean nothing, but repeated small messages, that is a signal. That is her choosing you, again and again, in subtle ways. You must understand this. Attraction doesn't always show up as bold declarations. Often it shows up as quiet persistence, as gentle nudges, as reasons that don't quite make logical sense, but feel intentional when you step back and look at them. Don't overanalyze the content she sends. Analyze the fact that she sends anything at all. That is where the truth lives. In the world of how to fall in love, connection is built through frequency, through familiarity, through shared moments, even small ones. Every meme, every question, every random message is a thread, and thread by thread, she's weaving a connection with you. Now, here's where most men get it wrong. They respond passively, they give short answers, they miss the invitation. Don't do that. Be present, be engaged. That is your role. If she opens the door, you step through it with awareness and intention, not desperation, not overexcitement, calm confidence. Because understanding female psychology means recognizing effort, even when it's disguised as something casual. These psychology tricks are not manipulation. They are expression through subtlety. And if you learn to see them, you stop guessing. You start knowing. So the next time she sends you something random, pause for a second. Look beyond the surface. Ask yourself, why me? Why now? That question will reveal more than the message itself. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That is how awareness sharpens your perception. That is how you move from confusion to clarity. And that is how to fall in love, not by chasing, not by forcing, but by recognizing when someone is quietly choosing you, one small message at a time. Sign 8, the lingering goodbye. Sign 8, the lingering goodbye. This is where the truth reveals itself, not in what is said, but in what is delayed. The conversation is over. Logically, it's done. There's nothing left to add. And yet, she doesn't leave. Not immediately. She lingers. She stretches the moment. She searches, almost instinctively, for one more thread to hold on to, one more sentence, one more smile, one more reason not to walk away just yet. Pay attention to that, because time is the one thing people don't give away without meaning. When a woman chooses to stay a little longer, when she delays the ending, when she slows her steps or turns back for just one more thing, that is not sluche. That is intention wrapped in subtlety. She might adjust her bag. She might bring up something small, something that doesn't even matter. Oh, by the way, or I just remembered, yikes, these are not random phrases. That is her creating space, extending presence. Because she feels something she's not ready to cut off. And you must understand this. Attraction is not always loud. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers through hesitation, through pauses, through the quiet refusal to let a moment end too quickly. That is where a high-value man stays aware. He doesn't rush. He doesn't cut the moment short. He doesn't say, "All right, see you," and turn away too fast. Don't do that. Be present. Be calm. Let the moment breathe. Because when you carry masculine energy, grounded and steady, you don't chase endings. You allow space for connection to unfold. And in that space, she feels safe to linger, safe to stay, safe to explore that feeling just a little longer. That is how you attract women without forcing anything, not by trying harder, not by talking more, but by recognizing the invisible signals most men overlook. The lingering goodbye is one of the clearest of them all. She walks away slowly. That matters. People who are indifferent leave quickly, efficiently, cleanly. But when she slows down, when her steps don't match urgency, when there's a softness in her exit, that is emotion at work. And if she looks back, even for a second, that is confirmation, not of certainty, but of interest, of curiosity, of a connection she hasn't fully figured out yet. And you must not interrupt that process. Don't overanalyze in the moment. Don't rush to impress. Just hold your frame. Stay composed. That is what a high-value man does. He understands that attraction grows in silence just as much as in conversation. I'm not ready for this to end. She may never say those words out loud, but her actions will say it for her. In the delay, in the pause, in the unnecessary extension of a finished interaction. And if you miss that, you miss everything, because most men are too focused on what comes next, the next line, the next move, the next outcome. But real connection lives in the present moment, right there, in that lingering space between goodbye and departure. So be aware. Don't rush. Don't cut it short because you're nervous or unsure. That is where you lose the advantage. That is where you fail to attract women, not because you lack value, but because you fail to recognize it in action. Masculine energy is patient. It is observant. It is grounded in the moment. And when you operate from that place, you begin to see these signals clearly. The lingering goodbye becomes obvious, predictable, even powerful. And here's the truth you must remember. Attraction is not built in grand gestures. It is built in small, repeated signals that reveal emotional investment. The lingering goodbye is one of those signals. Quiet, subtle, easy to miss. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That is your moment. Not to act desperately, but to simply be present, calm, and aware. That is how a high-value man moves. That is how masculine energy naturally attracts women, without force, without pressure, without noise. Hey, my friend, I'm glad you stayed until the very end. Listen carefully. This is something most men go their entire lives without ever realizing. Attraction isn't loud. It isn't obvious. It doesn't always look like what movies or social media tell you. It's quiet. It's subtle. It shows up in small moments, repeated patterns, and little details that most people overlook. So don't rush. Don't overthink. And don't assume nothing is happening just because it's not dramatic. Be present. That is the key. Slow down your mind, observe more, react less. You must learn to notice, not chase, because the truth is simple. The signals are already there. They've always been there. And once you start seeing them, everything changes. Take this with you today. I see what others miss. I move with awareness. If that resonates with you, drop that line in the comments. Stay sharp, stay calm, and I'll see you in the next one. 11 signs she's emotionally attracted to you. Hidden female psychology. Psychology tricks. Welcome to our channel. It's Stoicism Win, where you find interesting and useful knowledge from the Stoic philosophers to lead a happy and good life. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And when it comes to love, the quality of your attention can change everything. Here's a truth many men go through life without fully understanding. When a woman feels emotionally attracted to you, she usually will not come out and say it directly. She reveals it in quieter ways, through small actions, soft signals, and brief moments that can easily be missed by a man who is not paying close attention. That is where many men get it wrong. They tell themselves, she's just being friendly. They brush it off and think, maybe I'm reading too much into it. But often, what seems small on the surface carries much deeper meaning underneath. In many cases, she is not being casual at all. She is slowly letting you step closer to her inner world, carefully, gently, and sincerely. And that is what makes emotional attraction so powerful. It is rarely loud. It does not always arrive with obvious words or dramatic gestures. More often, it grows in silence, in comfort, in trust, and in the little signs a woman gives when she begins to feel safe with you. If you learn to recognize those signs, you gain more than just a better understanding of women. You begin to understand connection itself. You learn how real emotional closeness is built, not through force, not through games, but through awareness, patience, and depth. And that kind of connection is something many men spend their whole lives searching for, but only a few truly learn how to see. 1. She remembers the small things about you. There's a quiet kind of attention that most men overlook, and if you miss it, you miss the whole story. Because when a woman is emotionally drawn to you, she doesn't always say it out loud. She shows it in the smallest, almost invisible ways. And one of the clearest signs is this. She remembers the little things about you, the details that most people forget within minutes. That is not random. That is not coincidence. That is intention wrapped in care. A woman who feels nothing won't invest her mind in you. She won't store away your preferences, your habits, your offhand comments. But a woman who is emotionally attracted listens closely, observes quietly, and keeps those details like they matter, because to her, they do. You must understand this clearly. This is one of the most powerful psychology tricks rooted in female psychology, because emotional attraction often speaks through memory, not words. Think about it. You casually mentioned that you don't like rainy days. Maybe you said it once, briefly, without any expectation that it would stick. And then, days or weeks later, when the sky turns gray and the rain starts falling, she sends you a simple message. Hey, I don't know why, but I thought of you today. You okay? Now pause right there. Don't brush that off. Don't say she's just being nice, because that is exactly how men miss meaningful connection. That message carries emotional weight. It shows she connected your inner world to a moment in hers, and that is how emotional bonding quietly forms. Be aware, people don't remember what doesn't matter to them. So if she recalls your favorite drink, the story you told about your childhood, or even the way you reacted to something small, that means you are occupying space in her mind even when you're not physically present. And that is a strong signal of emotional attraction. Don't underestimate this, because in the language of female psychology, attention is affection, memory is investment, and consistency is intention. You must also notice the tone. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's soft, almost casual. But that softness is where the depth lies, because she's not trying to impress you. She's simply expressing that you matter in her internal world, and that is far more meaningful than grand gestures. Be sharp enough to recognize that when a woman remembers the small things, She is showing you how to fall in love without ever saying the words directly. She is inviting you into a deeper connection. One where understanding replaces guessing and presence replaces confusion. Now here's where many men go wrong. They ignore these signals because they're waiting for something obvious, something undeniable. But emotional attraction doesn't work like that. It grows quietly, through repeated moments of care, through small acts of remembrance, through subtle emotional alignment. And if you keep overlooking it, you risk missing something genuine. Don't do that. Don't let your doubt silence what is clearly being shown to you. Instead, be present, be observant, be responsive, because connection is built in these details, not in grand declarations. And here's the deeper truth. When a woman remembers you in moments that have nothing to do with you, like a rainy afternoon or a random song playing in the background, it means you've become part of her emotional landscape. And that is not something casual. That is something intentional and real. So understand this clearly. If you want to navigate relationships better, if you want to truly grasp psychology tricks and the depth of female psychology, you must stop looking only at what is said and start paying attention to what is remembered. Because that is where real emotion lives, and that is how to fall in love in a way that feels natural, grounded, and deeply human. 2. She finds reasons to talk to you. Women don't always initiate, but when they do, it carries weight. It's not random. It's not accidental. That is intention wrapped in subtlety. A woman who finds reasons to talk to you is revealing something deeper than casual interest. She is choosing connection. She is opening a small door and waiting to see if you notice. She finds reasons to talk to you. That is the signal. Not loud, not obvious, but powerful. Maybe she sends you a random funny video and says, "This reminded me of you." Don't brush it off. Don't assume it's just a joke. It's not about the video. It's about presence. It's about you crossing her mind in an unguarded moment. And when someone thinks of you without effort, that is where emotional attraction begins. You must understand this. Women value emotional safety before anything else. They don't always walk straight toward you. They circle gently. They test the space. So when she reaches out, especially without a clear reason, she's not just filling time. She's building a bridge, one message at a time, one small interaction at a time. That is how emotional connection grows. Be aware of the pattern. One message can be coincidence. Two might be curiosity. But when it becomes consistent, when she finds little, almost unnecessary reasons to check in, that is no longer random. That is investment. She is choosing you in small ways before choosing you in big ones. Don't make the mistake most men make. Don't downplay it. Don't say, "She's just being nice." That thinking will cost you opportunities. Because a man who understands these signals positions himself differently. He doesn't chase blindly. He observes. He responds with calm confidence. That is what a high-value man does. He doesn't ignore interest, and he doesn't overreact to it. He meets it with grounded presence. And here's where it becomes even more important. The way you respond matters more than the signal itself. If she reaches out and you reply with dry, lifeless energy, you close the door she just opened. But if you engage lightly, naturally, without forcing, you strengthen that connection. You show her that her effort was seen, that it was received, that it was worth it. Be playful, but don't perform. Be warm, but don't overwhelm. That balance is masculine energy at its finest. It's not about saying the perfect thing. It's about being present in the moment without trying to control it. Women feel that. They respond to that. And that is how you begin to attract women without chasing them. Think about it this way. In a world where attention is everywhere, she chose to direct hers toward you. That is never meaningless. That is selective focus. And selective focus is the beginning of emotional attachment. She could have sent that video to anyone, but she didn't. She sent it to you. That is the detail you must not ignore. You must also understand the emotional risk behind her action. Even something as simple as sending a message carries vulnerability. She is stepping slightly outside her comfort zone. She is giving you an opening. And every time you respond well, you reinforce her decision to keep coming back. But don't rush. Don't push for more too quickly. Let it build. Let the conversations breathe. A high-value man understands timing. He doesn't try to turn every interaction into something bigger. He allows the connection to evolve naturally. That patience is rare and it's incredibly attractive. At the same time, don't be passive. If she opens the door, walk through it. Add to the conversation. Share a thought. Ask something simple. Keep the energy flowing. That is how you create momentum. That is how you turn small moments into meaningful connection. And remember this, attraction is rarely loud at the beginning. It whispers. It hints. It shows up in these small, almost forgettable moments. But they're not forgettable. They're foundational. They are the early signs of something deeper forming beneath the surface. So the next time she sends you something random, pause for a second. Look beyond the surface. Feel the intention behind it. And respond like a man who understands what's really happening. Because when you do that, when you combine awareness with calm masculine energy, you naturally attract women without force, without pressure, and without confusion. That is the difference. That is how a high-value man sees what others miss. And if you feel this truth, don't stay silent. Say it out loud. Drop a comment right now if she finds a reason, she feels something. Like this video, subscribe for deeper insight, and remember, when a woman reaches out without a reason, you are the reason. 3. She shares personal things. When a woman begins to share personal parts of her life, that is not casual, that is not random, that is not small talk. It is trust being handed to you, quietly and deliberately. Understand this clearly. Women do not open up to just anyone. They protect their inner world carefully. And when she chooses to reveal her fears, her past, or the struggles she has carried in silence, she is not just speaking. She is inviting you into a space very few are allowed to enter. If you miss that, you miss everything. As Brené Brown once said, vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, and connection. That is exactly what is happening in front of you, whether you recognize it or not. When she tells you about a failure she rarely talks about, that is not just a story. That is her testing the safety of your presence. That is her asking, without words, can you handle the real me? This is where many men fail, because they respond too quickly. They try to fix. They try to impress. They interrupt the moment. But you must not do that. You must stay grounded. You must listen. You must show her, through your calm and your presence, that you are steady, that you are not shaken by truth, that you are a man with an iron mind. This is where old Stoic wisdom becomes your greatest advantage, because Stoicism win is not about controlling others. It is about mastering yourself in the moment that matters most. Do not rush. Do not judge. Do not turn her vulnerability into a performance stage for your ego. Instead, be still, be attentive, be real, because emotional attraction grows in silence, in safety, in the feeling that she can be fully seen without being diminished. In modern life, where distractions are constant and conversations are shallow, a woman sharing something deeply personal is rare, and rarity creates value, so treat it that way. Treat it with respect. Treat it with weight. Because this is how real connection is built, not through clever lines, not through surface-level charm, but through presence, consistency, and emotional steadiness. Remember what Marcus Aurelius taught through his life. Control your reactions, and you control your world. And in this moment, your reaction determines whether she moves closer or quietly pulls away. You must understand, attraction is not always loud. It is often subtle, it is often quiet, and it is always revealed through actions, not declarations. When she opens up, she is not asking you to solve her past. She is asking you to prove that you can stand in her present without breaking the connection. That requires discipline. That requires awareness. That requires the kind of emotional strength that only comes from practicing Stoicism win daily. Repeat this to yourself until it becomes part of your identity. Listen more. React less. Stay calm. Stay grounded. Build an iron mind. Because when you do this consistently, you become the man she feels safe with, the man she trusts, the man she chooses to open up to again and again. And that is where real attraction lives, not in chasing, not in forcing, but in being the kind of man who can hold space without losing himself. This is your instruction. This is your edge. This is how you win. 4. She genuinely cares about your life. When a woman genuinely cares about your life, it is never surface level, never routine, never just polite conversation. It is intentional, focused, and emotionally invested, and that is where real female psychology reveals itself. Many men hear the question, "How is your day?" and brush it off as small talk, but don't make that mistake. Don't reduce something meaningful into something ordinary, because when she asks and truly listens, when she follows up, when she remembers the details you thought no one noticed, that is not casual, that is connection. That is one of the quiet psychology tricks that signals emotional attraction. Think about it clearly. Anyone can ask a question, but not everyone listens with presence. Not everyone holds onto your words. Not everyone brings them back later with sincerity. And when she does, you must recognize it for what it is, a sign that you matter in her internal world. That is female psychology in motion, and if you understand it, you begin to understand how to fall in love the right way, not through force, not through performance, but through awareness and emotional intelligence. She is not just gathering information, she is building a map of you, your habits, your struggles, your victories, and your emotions, and she is doing it because she wants to feel closer to you. Be aware of this. Don't ignore it. Don't assume it is nothing. Because when a woman remembers that you had an important meeting last week or asks about something you mentioned in passing days ago, she is showing consistency, and consistency is care. That is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks in attraction. Attention is investment, and investment is interest. Now understand this deeply. In female psychology, emotional attraction grows through connection, not grand gestures, not loud declarations, but small, repeated moments of genuine care. That is how to fall in love in a way that lasts. You must learn to read these moments. You must learn to respect them. Because if you overlook them, you miss the opportunity to build something real. And here is where many men go wrong. They respond passively. They give short answers. They fail to engage. And then they wonder why the connection fades. Don't do that. Don't shut down the very bridge she is trying to build toward you. Instead, meet her halfway. Be present. Share more. Show that you value her attention. That is how you deepen attraction. That is how you align with the natural flow of female psychology. When she asks about your day, don't just say fine. Expand. Express. Let her see a piece of your world. Because when she listens, she is inviting you into hers. That is not random. That is intentional. That is one of the most effective psychology tricks in creating emotional bonds. And if you are serious about understanding how to fall in love in a mature, grounded way, you must recognize that love is built in these small exchanges, these quiet moments, these consistent acts of care. Not in fantasy, not in assumptions, but in reality. So be sharp. Be aware. Don't dismiss what is right in front of you. Because when a woman genuinely cares about your life, when she listens, remembers, and follows up, she is not just being kind, she is opening a door. And you must decide, will you walk through it with awareness, or will you stand there and miss it completely? If this opened your eyes, don't just watch, act. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp insights, and start paying attention to the small details that reveal real connection. Because when a woman remembers your day, your struggles, your wins, that's not casual, that's emotional investment. Don't ignore it. Recognize it. Value it. Now drop this in the comments to lock it in your mind. When she listens and remembers, it means I truly matter. 5. She laughs more around you. She laughs more around you. Don't overlook this. Most men do. They think it's about being funny. It's not. It's about how she feels in your presence. Laughter is a natural response to comfort, safety, and emotional connection. That is the truth. A woman doesn't laugh freely unless she feels relaxed, unless she feels seen, unless something inside her says, I enjoy being here. Example, your jokes aren't even that funny, but she still laughs. Pay attention to that. It's not the joke, it's you. It's the emotional atmosphere you create. Be aware of this. When a woman is emotionally attracted, she doesn't just hear your words, she feels your energy, your tone, your presence, your masculine energy. That is what she responds to. Now understand this deeper. A high value man doesn't try to force laughter. He doesn't perform like a comedian seeking approval. Don't chase reactions. Don't overdo it. Be grounded. Be calm. Be natural. Because real attraction is not built on entertainment, it's built on emotional experience. When she laughs around you more than she does with others, it means she associates you with positive feelings, lightness, ease, warmth. That is powerful. That is how you attract women without saying a single impressive line. You must recognize the difference. Polite laughter is short, controlled, and fades quickly. Genuine laughter is effortless, spontaneous, and comes back again and again when she's with you. And here's where most men miss the point. They hear her laugh and think, she likes my jokes. No, think bigger. Think deeper. She likes how she feels when she's around you. That is what you must protect and develop. Don't interrupt that flow by trying too hard. Don't suddenly become someone else. Stay consistent. Stay centered. Because masculine energy is not loud. It is steady. It is calm confidence. It allows her to relax into her natural self. And when a woman feels safe enough to laugh freely, she is already opening the door emotionally. Let's expand this further. Watch her behavior closely. Does she laugh even at small comments? Does she smile before you even finish your sentence? Does her body language soften when she's around you? That is not random. That is emotional alignment. That is her subconscious saying, I enjoy this man. A high-value man notices patterns, not moments. One laugh means nothing. Repeated laughter means everything. That is the signal. That is the clue most men ignore until it's too late. Also, understand this principle. People don't fake comfort for long. They can pretend to be polite. They can act interested for a moment. But consistent laughter? That comes from genuine emotional engagement. So if she consistently laughs more around you, you are doing something right. Don't question it. Don't overanalyze it. Build on it. Strengthen that connection by staying authentic. Be present. Be attentive. Don't rush things. Emotional attraction grows in these small, repeated moments. And here's the deeper lesson for you as a man. Don't aim to be funny. Aim to be someone she feels good around. That is the shift. That is how you truly attract women. Humor becomes natural when tension disappears. And tension disappears when she trusts your presence. So focus on your energy, your calm, your confidence, your ability to listen, to respond, to be in the moment. That is masculine energy in action. In the end, remember this clearly. It's not about the joke. It's about the feeling. Always. If she laughs more around you, she's not reacting to your words. She's responding to your presence. And when you understand that, when you truly embody that, you don't just make her laugh. You make her feel something she doesn't easily find elsewhere. And that is where real emotional attraction begins. 6. Her body language changes around you. There is a principle you must understand if you want clarity in relationships. The body speaks long before the mouth does, and when a woman is emotionally drawn to you, her body will reveal what her words carefully hold back. As the great Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." This is where most men fail. They listen only to words and ignore the silent truth unfolding right in front of them. When her body language changes around you, when she leans just a little closer during conversation, when her hand finds a reason, any reason, to lightly touch your arm, when her eye contact lingers a second longer than necessary, this is not accidental. This is not casual. This is not meaningless. This is emotional gravity pulling her toward you without her even realizing it. Understand this clearly. Attraction is not always declared. It is displayed, subtly, quietly, consistently. If you train your awareness with old Stoic wisdom, you begin to notice patterns instead of guessing intentions. You begin to observe instead of overthinking, and that is where your power begins. Do not interrupt these moments with insecurity. Do not rush to label them. Do not question them out loud. Instead, be grounded, be present, be the man who notices but does not chase validation. That is what creates magnetic presence. That is what defines Stoicism when in modern dating. In today's fast-paced world, where messages are filtered and emotions are often hidden behind screens, body language remains one of the last honest signals. It is raw, it is instinctive, it is real. A man with an iron mind understands that reality does not need to be forced. It only needs to be recognized. If she angles her body towards you in a group, if her posture softens when you speak, if her gestures mirror yours without conscious effort, you are not imagining things, you are witnessing alignment. And alignment is the foundation of attraction. But here is the instruction you must follow. Do not become reactive. Do not become overly eager. Do not break the natural rhythm by seeking confirmation. Instead, match her energy with calm confidence. Respond with steady presence. Allow her comfort to grow in your space, because attraction deepens in environments where there is no pressure, only quiet strength. Remember this: a man who is centered does not need to ask, "Does she like me?" He observes. He understands. He moves with intention. This mindset, rooted in old Stoic wisdom, transforms confusion into clarity. You must train yourself to see what others overlook, to remain composed when others become uncertain, to trust signals without becoming dependent on them. That is how you build an iron mind in relationships. Repetition is your teacher here. Notice the lean, notice the touch, notice the eye contact again and again until your mind stops doubting and starts recognizing patterns. Success in attraction is not about luck. It is about awareness, sharpened through discipline. And let this guide you in modern life, when you are on a date, when you are in conversation, when you are simply sharing space. Slow down. Observe more than you speak. Feel the energy instead of forcing direction. Because the man who understands nonverbal signals does not chase connection, he allows it to reveal itself. That is Stoicism win. That is emotional mastery. That is how you move through life with quiet power and undeniable presence. If you're paying attention, you already see what most men miss. Attraction is not spoken, it's revealed. In the way she leans in, the way she lingers, the way her body moves closer without thinking. Don't ignore the signs. Read them. Own them. Act with confidence. Now prove you understand. Drop this in the comments. I see what others overlook. 7. She gets slightly jealous in a subtle way. She doesn't create drama. She doesn't try to control you. But pay attention, because when a woman is emotionally invested, her feelings will quietly reveal themselves in subtle ways, and one of the clearest signals is a touch of jealousy, expressed with restraint, not chaos. That is the difference most men miss. In female psychology, attraction is rarely loud. It is often layered, emotional, and carefully measured. You must understand this if you truly want to grasp psychology tricks and learn how to fall in love the right way. When she says something like, "You seem to get along pretty well with her," it may sound casual on the surface, almost playful, even harmless. But don't ignore it. Look deeper. That sentence carries emotional weight. It means she notices. It means she pays attention. It means, in her own quiet way, she cares where your attention goes. And that is not insecurity, it is investment. A woman who feels nothing will not react at all. She will not observe, she will not comment, she will not care enough to even register what you do with other women. Indifference is silence. But subtle jealousy? That is presence. That is emotion. That is a sign she is already, consciously or not, stepping into a deeper emotional connection with you. Now listen carefully. Don't misinterpret this as a green light to provoke jealousy. Don't test her. Don't play games. That is where many men fail. They hear about psychology tricks, they learn a little about female psychology, and they start manipulating situations to force reactions. That is a mistake. Real attraction doesn't need to be forced. It reveals itself naturally. Instead, be aware. Be observant. Be grounded. When she shows this subtle jealousy, respond with calm confidence. Don't dismiss it, but don't overreact either. Acknowledge her presence. Reassure without becoming apologetic. That balance is power. Because when a woman feels that you are aware of her emotions, but not controlled by them, she begins to feel safe. And safety is one of the deepest emotional triggers in how to fall in love. Understand this. Her slight jealousy is not about ownership. It is about emotional positioning. She is, in that moment, asking herself, where do I stand with him? And how you respond answers that question more loudly than any words. If you become defensive, you create distance. If you become overly eager to please, you lose mystery. But if you stay calm, composed, and respectful, you create attraction. That is the level of awareness most men never reach. And that is why they miss these moments entirely. Remember, attraction is not always expressed through grand gestures. It is often hidden in small shifts of tone, in passing comments, in the way she slightly changes her energy when another woman enters the picture. These are the signals. These are the clues. This is where understanding female psychology separates the average man from the man who truly understands connection. So don't ignore it. Don't overanalyze it. Recognize it. Respect it. Let it guide your awareness, not your ego. Because when a woman shows you a hint of jealousy in a calm, subtle way, she is not trying to control you. She is revealing that you matter. And in the world of psychology tricks and emotional dynamics, that quiet admission is far more powerful than any loud declaration. 8. She wants to spend time with you. She wants to spend time with you. Time is the one currency no one gets back, and people spend it carefully, especially as they grow older and wiser. So understand this clearly. When a woman chooses to spend her time with you, she is making a quiet but powerful statement about your place in her world. Example, even when she's busy, she makes time to see you. Not because she has time, but because you matter. That is not casual. That is intentional. And you must learn to recognize the weight of that choice. A woman's schedule is often full, responsibilities, work, family, her own need for peace, and yet, if she consistently carves out moments to be with you, that means she feels something deeper than surface-level interest. Don't ignore that. Don't downplay it. Be the man who sees the value in what is being offered without words. Because attraction is not always loud. Sometimes it's shown in the quiet decision to sit beside you, to share an hour, to choose your presence over everything else competing for her attention. Now here's where most men get it wrong. They focus too much on what she says and not enough on what she does. Words can be playful, even confusing at times. But time is honest. Time reveals priorities. If she rearranges her plans, if she checks in to see when you're free, if she suggests meeting again before the current moment even ends, these are not random actions. These are signals, subtle but powerful. And if you are paying attention, you will see that this is how attraction breeds in real life. Not in grand gestures, not in dramatic confessions, but in consistent presence. Be grounded. Be aware. A high-value man understands that attention is earned, not chased. He doesn't beg for time. He attracts women by building a life that is already meaningful, already full. And when a woman steps into that life willingly, when she chooses to be part of his time instead of being asked repeatedly, that is when the dynamic shifts. That is when connection becomes real. Masculine energy is not about forcing moments. It's about creating an environment where those moments naturally happen. Think about it. Anyone can say, "I miss you." Anyone can send a message. But not everyone will show up. Not everyone will invest their limited hours into being with you. So when she does, you must respect that. Don't take it lightly. Don't assume it will always be there. Be present. Be intentional. Match her energy with calm confidence. That is how you deepen attraction without pressure. And here's something even more important. When a woman wants to spend time with you, she is not just filling space. She is seeking connection. She wants to feel your presence, your attention, your calm. She wants to see how you move, how you think, how you carry yourself in real moments. That is where attraction grows strongest. Not through texts, not through imagination, but through shared experiences, through laughter, silence, small conversations that mean more than they seem. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't chase validation. If she consistently chooses to be around you, take that as a sign of genuine interest. Be the man who appreciates it without clinging to it. Be steady. Be grounded. That is masculine energy at its finest, quiet, confident, and deeply attractive. And when you operate from that place, you don't just attract women. You attract the right kind of attention, the kind that stays, the kind that builds, the kind that turns moments into something lasting. Remember this: time is not given without reason. If she gives you hers, you already matter. The question is, will you rise to meet that value, or will you overlook it like most men do? If this message resonates with you, don't just watch, take action. Like the video, share it with someone who needs clarity, and subscribe for more insight that sharpens your mindset. Now anchor this truth in your mind. Comment below, "I am a man worth her time, and my presence matters." 9. She feels what you feel. She feels what you feel. That is not coincidence. That is connection. When a woman is emotionally attracted to you, she doesn't just hear your words, she experiences your state. When you're genuinely happy, her energy rises with yours. When life presses down on you, she doesn't step away, she steps closer. This is what emotional alignment looks like in real life. And in today's fast, distracted world, where most conversations stay shallow and rushed, this kind of presence is rare and powerful. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Understand this clearly. When she is emotionally invested, her inner world begins to reflect yours. She is not acting. She is responding. Naturally, effortlessly. That is your signal. Look at the example. You tell her you're having a hard time. Most people will give you surface-level responses. It'll be okay. Stay strong. Empty phrases. Automatic replies. But not her. She pauses. She leans in. She asks deeper questions. She wants to understand the weight behind your words. She listens, not to reply, but to connect. That is emotional alignment. And you must recognize it for what it is: a sign of genuine attraction, not just polite interest. Now listen carefully. Don't ignore this. Don't downplay it. Many men miss the sign because they are trained to look for loud signals, attention, validation, excitement. But real emotional attraction is often quiet, subtle, controlled, rooted in presence, not performance. This is where old Stoic wisdom gives you an advantage. You don't chase noise. You observe depth. You don't react impulsively. You read patterns. That is how a man with an iron mind operates. You must also understand your role in this dynamic. Emotional alignment is not one-sided. If she feels safe stepping into your emotional world, it means you have created stability. You have shown consistency. You have not been chaotic, unpredictable, or reactive. You have remained grounded. That is what allows her to open up. As Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And emotional steadiness, that is a form of bravery. Most men cannot hold it, but you must. In modern life, where distractions are constant and attention is cheap, emotional presence is expensive. Anyone can send a message. Anyone can react with emojis. But very few people truly feel with you. Very few people slow down enough to understand you. So when she does, pay attention. This is not casual. This is not random. This is investment. But here is the discipline you must follow. Do not become dependent on it. Do not lose yourself in it. Appreciate it. Acknowledge it. But remain centered. Because Stoicism win is not about needing someone to feel what you feel. It is about mastering your own emotional state first. When you are grounded, her alignment becomes a complement, not a necessity. Repeat this in your mind. You must stay steady. You must stay aware. You must stay in control. When she leans in during your struggles, don't collapse into weakness. Stand firm. Share, but don't unload everything. Express, but don't seek rescue. That is how you maintain respect. That is how you build deeper attraction. That is how a man with an iron mind leads emotional energy without forcing it. And here's the truth most men never hear. Women are drawn to emotional strength, not emotional silence. There is a difference. Silence is avoidance. Strength is controlled expression. When you communicate with clarity and calm, you give her something to connect with. And when she responds with genuine empathy, you are witnessing emotional alignment in its purest form. So observe her reactions. Notice the details. Does she remember what matters to you? Does she adjust her tone when you're low? Does she celebrate your wins as if they're her own? These are not small things. These are signals. Clear signals. Old Stoic wisdom teaches you to see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. So don't romanticize. Don't exaggerate. But don't ignore either. Balance your perception. That is your power. That is Stoicism win. And remember this, a man who understands emotional alignment does not chase validation. He recognizes connection. He protects his energy. He leads with calm certainty. He builds relationships based on depth, not distraction. That is your standard. That is your path. Stay sharp. Stay grounded. Build the iron mind, and everything else will follow. 10. She respects you. Respect is the final test, the quiet signal that separates fleeting interest from real emotional attraction. And if you miss this, you misunderstand everything about female psychology and how to fall in love in a grounded, lasting way. Because emotional attraction is not just about how she feels in the moment, it is about how she consistently chooses to treat you over time. And that is where most men get it wrong. They chase excitement, they chase attention, but they ignore respect. When, in reality, respect is the foundation that holds everything together. That is the truth you must understand if you want to master psychology tricks and truly read female psychology with clarity. Watch closely, because a woman who is emotionally attracted to you listens when you speak, not out of politeness, but because your thoughts matter to her. She doesn't interrupt to control the conversation. She leans in, she considers, she responds with intention. That is not accidental. That is emotional investment. That is how to fall in love unfolding in real time. And when you talk about your goals, your direction, your plans, she supports them, not by blindly agreeing with everything you say, but by encouraging your growth, challenging you in a constructive way, and standing beside you instead of subtly pulling you off your path. Because a woman who respects you does not compete with your purpose, she aligns with it. And this is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks hidden inside female psychology. Understand this clearly. She will never try to make you feel small. She will never use sarcasm to cut you down. She will never dismiss your efforts as insignificant. Because attraction that lacks respect quickly turns into distance, and distance turns into disconnection. That is why you must pay attention to how she treats you when there is no pressure, no performance, just everyday life, because that is where truth lives. Don't ignore the small moments. Don't excuse subtle disrespect. Don't convince yourself that attraction is enough without respect, because it never is, it never will be. Be the man who notices patterns. Be the man who values consistency over intensity. Be the man who understands that real emotional attraction feels calm, steady, and supportive, not confusing or draining. That is how to fall in love the right way, not by chasing signals, but by recognizing alignment. And here is the deeper layer most people miss. Respect flows both ways. You cannot demand it without embodying it. You must respect yourself first, your time, your standards, your direction. Because female psychology naturally responds to that energy. It reflects what you tolerate. It mirrors what you accept. And this is where true psychology tricks come into play. Not manipulation, but awareness. Not control, but clarity. If she sees that you carry yourself with quiet confidence, that you don't seek constant validation, that you don't shrink to keep her interested, she will naturally elevate her respect for you. And when that respect is real, her attraction deepens without effort, without games, without confusion. So remember this, attraction can spark quickly, but respect is built slowly. And if she truly respects you, she will protect your dignity, she will value your presence, she will treat you like someone who matters, not just someone who is available. That is the difference. That is the signal. That is the truth hidden in female psychology and how to fall in love with strength, not uncertainty. Don't chase attention, chase alignment. Don't settle for chemistry without respect, because that path leads nowhere worth staying. And always remind yourself, The right woman doesn't just feel something for you, she honors you through her actions, consistently, quietly, powerfully. 11. She mirrors your energy and behavior. She mirrors your energy and behavior. This is one of the most overlooked signs of emotional attraction, and yet it is one of the most powerful. When a woman feels deeply connected to you, she often begins to match your emotional tone, your rhythm, your way of speaking, and even your small habits without planning to do it. Don't miss this. Don't brush it off as random. Be observant. Be calm. Be wise enough to notice what most men ignore. In female psychology, this kind of mirroring is not usually forced, calculated, or obvious. It happens quietly. It happens naturally. It happens when she feels comfortable enough to let her guard down and step into your emotional frame. That is why this matters so much. A woman who is emotionally attracted is not only listening to your words. She is responding to your energy. She is tuning herself to your presence. If you speak in a calm and grounded way, she may soften her voice without realizing it. If you slow your pace and move with ease, she may begin to follow that same rhythm. If you use a certain phrase a few times, suddenly she starts using it too. These are not loud declarations. These are quiet signs. But quiet does not mean small. Quiet often means real. This is where many men make a mistake. They wait for dramatic proof. They wait for a grand confession. They wait for something impossible to miss. But attraction, especially emotional attraction, rarely works that way. Real connection often shows up in subtle ways first. It shows up in how she adjusts, in how she leans into your world, in how her behavior starts to echo yours. That is mirroring, and in the world of psychology tricks and female psychology, it is one of the clearest signs that she feels safe, engaged, and emotionally drawn to you. Think about it like this. People mirror those they trust, those they admire, and those they feel close to. That is human nature. When a woman begins to reflect your tone, your mood, or your expressions, her subconscious is often saying something her mouth has not said yet. I feel good around you. I feel safe here. I want to stay connected to this. That is not a small thing. That is not empty behavior. That is emotional alignment. And emotional alignment is where attraction becomes deeper than surface level chemistry. For example, maybe you are the kind of man who stays steady in conversation. You do not rush. You do not perform. You do not try too hard. At first, she may come in a little fast, a little guarded, a little uncertain. But after a while, she starts to settle. Her tone softens. Her body relaxes. Her words become more measured. She begins to match your calm. That is not just politeness. That can be emotional attraction in motion. Or maybe you have a playful phrase you use now and then, something simple, something natural. After spending time with you, she starts saying it too, smiling when she does. That is not always conscious. It is often connection expressing itself in small, human ways. This is why understanding female psychology matters. It helps you stop chasing noise and start noticing truth. A woman who mirrors you is often revealing more than she realizes. She is showing that she is emotionally present with you. She is showing that your energy affects her. She is showing that being around you is changing her state, even if only a little. And that matters. In a world full of mixed signals, loud advice, and shallow psychology tricks, this is one of the more honest signals because it is hard to fake for long. True mirroring usually comes from comfort. It comes from interest. It comes from the natural human desire to connect. Now, be careful here. Don't become obsessed. Don't start analyzing every word she says like a detective searching for clues. Be mature. Be balanced. One repeated phrase does not automatically mean love. One shared gesture does not guarantee deep attachment. You must look at the pattern, not one isolated moment. The real sign is consistency. Does she regularly begin to match your energy when you are together? Does she seem more in sync with you over time? Does the emotional distance shrink instead of grow? That is where the truth lives. That is where female psychology becomes visible in everyday life. And here is the deeper lesson for men. If you want to inspire this kind of connection, don't try to control it. Don't force chemistry. Don't use cheap psychology tricks to manipulate a woman into liking you. Be centered instead. Be emotionally steady. Be honest. Be the kind of man whose presence feels safe, warm, and grounded. Because when a woman feels that, she does not just hear you. She begins to harmonize with you. She begins to reflect you. She begins, without effort, to move closer to your emotional wavelength. That is how to fall in love in a healthy way, not through pressure, not through games, but through trust, safety, and quiet emotional resonance. In fact, one of the most misunderstood parts of how to fall in love is this: real attraction often begins with comfort before it becomes confession. It begins with subtle alignment before it becomes open affection. It begins with rhythm, with ease, with the feeling that being around someone just feels natural. So when she mirrors your behavior, your tone, your pace, or your language, pay attention. Don't rush it. Don't brag about it. Don't ruin it by pushing for certainty too soon. Let it breathe. Let it unfold. Let her comfort grow. Because attraction is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply this: she starts meeting you where you are. She starts flowing with your energy. She starts aligning with you emotionally, mentally, and even physically. And that is not coincidence. That is connection. That is one of the most real signs in female psychology. That is one of those psychology tricks the human heart plays without permission. And if you are wise enough to see it, you will understand that how to fall in love is often less about forcing sparks and more about recognizing when two people begin, quietly and beautifully, to move in the same direction. All right, my friend, if you've made it this far, you're already doing something most men never do. You're paying attention. The truth is simple. Women don't always say how they feel, but they always show it in quiet, powerful ways. You don't need to chase words. You need to read actions. Watch how she looks at you, how she stays, how she chooses you even when she doesn't have to. That's where the truth lives. Here's my honest advice to you. Don't force anything. Don't overthink every signal. Instead, become the kind of man who is calm, grounded, and aware. A man who listens more than he speaks. A man who doesn't rush, doesn't beg, doesn't chase validation. Because when you carry yourself that way, women don't feel pressured, they feel safe. And when a woman feels safe, she opens up naturally. That's not luck. That's real attraction. Stay sharp. Stay patient. And most importantly, stay in control of yourself. That's where your power is. Thanks for being here, my friend. I'll see you in the next video. Ten masculine habits that women find attractive in older men. Psychology tricks. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Most men are taught to fear aging, as if every passing year makes them less desirable, less relevant, and less powerful. They begin to believe time is stealing something from them. But that belief is false. The truth is much deeper and far more freeing. A man does not lose value because he gets older. He loses value only when he loses his center. Real masculine appeal is not built on youth, perfect looks, or flashy status. It is built on presence, self-command, and the quiet certainty a man carries within himself. That is why some older men can enter a room and instantly draw respect without chasing attention or proving anything. Women do not respond most strongly to noise, display, or surface-level charm. They respond to deeper signals, the kind that reveal stability, emotional control, confidence, and a life that has been shaped by experience. In this piece, we are pushing past the shallow myths and getting to the core of what truly makes an older man attractive. These are not cheap tricks. These are masculine habits that create lasting impact and separate an ordinary man from one who naturally holds value in the eyes of others. And by the end, you will also see the hidden habit that quietly destroys long-term attraction, even when everything else seems right. Habit number 1: purpose-driven living. This is where everything changes. A man without direction slowly drifts into needing approval, needing attention, needing someone else to tell him he matters. Don't be that man. Be the one who already knows where he's going. Because here's the truth. When a man has purpose, he doesn't chase validation, he naturally attracts it. That is the quiet power women feel but rarely explain. In female psychology, purpose signals stability, clarity, and inner strength. It tells her, without a word, that you are not lost, that you are not waiting to be chosen. You are already building something meaningful. And that alone makes you stand out in a world full of noise and distraction. You must understand this deeply. Attraction is not about trying harder, it's about living better. When your life has direction, your energy changes, your posture changes, your decisions become sharper. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop seeking approval in conversations. That is where real attraction begins. That is one of the most powerful psychology tricks most men overlook. They focus on what to say, how to act, how to impress, but they ignore the foundation, who they are becoming every single day. Purpose isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. But it shows in how you wake up early, how you stay disciplined, how you stay focused even when no one is watching. It shows in the way you talk about your goals, not to impress, but because you are genuinely committed. And women notice that. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because you're aligned with something bigger than attention. That is what creates emotional gravity. In How to Fall in Love, this matters more than charm or clever words. Because attraction grows strongest when a woman feels she is stepping into a man's world, not becoming his entire world. Don't make her your purpose. That creates pressure. That creates imbalance. Instead, invite her into a life that already has meaning, a life that is moving forward with or without her. Ironically, that is what makes her want to stay. That is how female psychology works at a deeper level. She is drawn to the man who is already fulfilled, not the man who is searching for fulfillment through her. So wake up with intention. Build something. Improve something. Move towards something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Maybe it's your business. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your personal growth. But it must be yours. Because when you are grounded in purpose, rejection doesn't shake you. Silence doesn't confuse you. You don't overthink every message or every interaction. You stay centered. That calm, grounded energy is incredibly attractive. It's not forced. It's not performative. It's natural. And that's what makes it powerful. Many men think attraction is about doing more. More texting. More talking. More proving. But the real psychology tricks are simpler than that. Do less chasing. Do more becoming. Shift your focus inward. Build a life that excites you. Because when you are excited about your own path, you become interesting without trying. You become confident without pretending. You become calm without effort. And in How to Fall in Love, this is the hidden truth. People don't fall for perfection. They fall for presence. They fall for someone who is fully engaged in their own life. So don't wait for motivation. Create structure. Don't wait for inspiration. Build habits. Don't wait for someone to believe in you. Start proving it to yourself. That is purpose-driven living. And once you step into it, everything shifts. Conversations feel easier. Decisions feel clearer. And attraction becomes a byproduct, not a goal. Remember this, a man with purpose doesn't need to be the loudest in the room. He just needs to be the most aligned with his path. That is what makes him magnetic. That is what makes him unforgettable. And that is what quietly, powerfully draws people, especially women, toward him. Habit number 2, the silver discipline, mastery of self. Habit number 2 is what I call the silver discipline, mastery of self, and this is where the line between an average man and a high-value man becomes unmistakably clear. Many men cross into their 40 seconds or 50 seconds and quietly begin to loosen their grip on themselves. They stop pushing. They stop learning. They stop demanding more from their body and mind. The gym becomes optional, curiosity fades, and comfort slowly replaces growth. Don't fall into that trap. Comfort feels good, but it quietly erases your edge. That is the truth most men avoid. But the man who refuses to settle, the one who keeps sharpening himself year after year, becomes something rare, and rarity is what naturally attracts women without effort. Think about it. When a man in his later years walks into a room with energy, posture, and presence that outshines men half his age, people notice. Not because of perfection, not because of genetics, but because of discipline. Because discipline is visible. It shows in how you move, how you speak, how you carry yourself when no one is watching. That is masculine energy at its finest, not loud, not forced, but grounded and undeniable. You must understand this. Discipline is attractive because it is difficult. Most people avoid it. So when you embody it, you stand apart without saying a word. This is not about chasing abs or looking like a fitness model. Don't misunderstand the point. This is about respect, self-respect. When you take care of your body, you send a quiet message. I value myself. When you train your mind, you signal, I am still growing. And growth is magnetic. A man who is still evolving carries a different kind of presence than a man who believes he has already arrived. That is why the journey matters more than the destination. Always. Be the man who chooses the hard path on purpose. Be the man who wakes up and does the uncomfortable thing before the easy one. That is how you build real confidence, not the kind that needs validation, but the kind that stands firm in silence. And here's the deeper layer most people miss. Discipline is not punishment, it is freedom. It frees you from laziness. It frees you from regret. It frees you from becoming a man who looks back and wonders what could have been. Pick one hard thing this year. Just one. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try to change everything overnight. That is where most men fail. Instead, choose something meaningful and commit to it fully. Learn a new language that challenges your brain. Set a fitness goal that pushes your limits. Build a business skill that expands your value. And don't quit when it gets boring. Don't quit when it gets hard. Stay. That is where transformation happens. Because here's the truth, any man can start something. Few men finish. And finishing is where respect is built, both from others and from within yourself. When a woman sees a man who follows through, who keeps his word to himself, she feels it. She may not explain it logically, but she responds to it emotionally. That consistency, that quiet strength, that unwavering focus, it signals safety, stability, and direction. And those are deeply attractive traits in a high-value man. Don't chase attention. Don't try to impress. Build yourself instead. Because when you embody discipline, you don't need tricks to attract women. You become the kind of man they notice naturally. You become the man who doesn't need to speak loudly to be heard. That is real masculine energy, controlled, focused, and self-directed. And remember this, aging is not the enemy. Neglect is. Time will pass no matter what you do. But how you use that time, that is your power. You can either drift into comfort or rise into mastery. The choice is yours every single day. So don't slow down just because the world expects you to. Don't shrink into a smaller version of yourself. Expand. Grow. Become sharper, stronger, wiser. Because a man who is still becoming is far more powerful than a man who believes he is finished. If this hit you, don't just watch, act. Drop this in the comments right now. I don't age, I sharpen. Like the video, subscribe for more real, grounded wisdom, and remember, a man who keeps growing never fades. He becomes undeniable. Habit number 3, calm decisiveness. Habit number 3 is calm decisiveness, and you must understand this clearly. Indecision quietly erodes attraction faster than any visible mistake ever could because hesitation signals uncertainty. And uncertainty creates emotional instability. But decisiveness, even imperfect decisiveness, builds trust, builds safety, builds presence. As Tony Robbins once said, it is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. You don't need perfect answers. You don't need flawless judgment. But you must decide. You must move. You must lead your own life with clarity. A man who calmly says, "This is what we're doing," without arrogance, without noise, creates a grounded energy that people, especially women, naturally lean into. That is not control. That is stability. That is direction. And in a world full of overthinking, endless options, and constant second-guessing, this kind of calm decisiveness becomes rare, and anything rare becomes valuable. Understand this. Hesitation creates doubt, and doubt spreads fast. It weakens connection. It disrupts momentum. But clarity? Clarity creates trust. Clarity creates emotional safety. When you decide, you remove confusion. When you move forward, you eliminate tension. And when you adjust later if needed, you prove something even more powerful. You prove that you are flexible without being lost. This is where old Stoic wisdom speaks directly to you. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control your response, your judgment, and your action. That is Stoicism win. That is the discipline of an iron mind. Look at modern life. Men today are overwhelmed with choices, from careers to relationships to daily decisions, and many freeze because they fear being wrong. But here is the truth: being wrong is not the problem. Staying stuck is. You must train yourself to act. Choose the restaurant. Set the plan. Speak your intention. Not aggressively, not loudly, but calmly, firmly, decisively. Because a man who trusts his own judgment teaches others to trust him too. And this is not just about attraction. It is about leadership in your own life. It is about becoming the man who does not wait for permission, the man who does not drift, the man who does not outsource his direction to the opinions of others. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is not loud. It is quiet. It is steady. It is the ability to make a decision without emotional chaos. You must practice this daily. Start small. Decide quickly. Move forward. Accept the outcome. Adjust without regret. This builds your iron mind. This builds your internal authority. And over time, people will feel it without you saying a word. They will sense that you are not easily shaken, that you do not collapse under pressure, that you're a man who moves through life with purpose. That is Stoicism win in action. That is old Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. So stop waiting. Stop circling decisions. Stop asking, what if I'm wrong? And start asking, what is the next move? Then make it. Own it. Refine it. Because in the end, attraction is not built on perfection. It is built on presence, clarity, and direction. Decide, move, adjust, and repeat until it becomes who you are. Habit number 4, controlled silence. Habit number 4 is controlled silence, and this is where most men get it completely wrong without even realizing it. They believe attraction comes from saying more, explaining more, proving more, but that is exactly where they lose their edge. A man who talks too much slowly drains the mystery that makes him compelling. Words, when overused, become noise. And noise is easy to ignore. But silence, controlled, intentional silence, that carries weight. That creates presence. That is one of the most powerful psychology tricks rooted deeply in female psychology and how attraction naturally builds over time. When you stop rushing to fill every pause, something interesting happens. People lean in. They pay closer attention. They begin to feel you rather than just hear you. That is the shift. That is the moment you move from being just another voice to becoming someone unforgettable. Don't explain everything. You don't need to. Over-explaining signals uncertainty. It tells the world you are trying to justify yourself instead of standing firmly in who you are. Be selective. Be precise. Say less, but make every word count. That is how you create impact. That is how you tap into how to fall in love on a deeper psychological level, because attraction isn't built through constant talking. It's built through emotional tension, curiosity, and space. And silence creates all three. Think about it. In conversations, the man who pauses, who listens fully, who responds calmly and briefly, he controls the rhythm. He sets the tone. He becomes the center without ever trying to dominate the space. That is real confidence. That is control. And here's where it connects directly to female psychology. Women are naturally drawn to emotional depth and presence, not noise, not constant chatter. When you speak less, she begins to wonder more. She starts filling the gaps with her own thoughts, her own curiosity. She leans into you emotionally. That is one of the most subtle yet powerful psychology tricks you can master. It's not manipulation. It's understanding human nature. It's understanding that attraction grows in space, not in overcrowded conversation. If you say everything, you leave nothing to discover. And without discovery, there is no excitement, no intrigue, no emotional pull. Be comfortable with silence. Most men fear it. They think silence is awkward. It's not. Awkwardness only appears when you are unsure of yourself. But when you are grounded, when you are calm, silence becomes strength. It becomes a signal that you don't need constant validation. You don't need to impress. You simply are. And that quiet confidence speaks louder than any long explanation ever could. That is how to fall in love in a way that feels natural, not forced, by allowing space for emotions to develop instead of trying to push them forward with endless words. Don't overshare too quickly. Mystery is not about hiding, it's about pacing. It's about revealing yourself layer by layer, not all at once. When you give everything away immediately, there is no journey left, no curiosity left, no reason for her to stay engaged. But when you hold back just enough, when you allow her to discover you over time, you create a dynamic that keeps her interested, invested, and emotionally connected. That is another core principle within psychology tricks and female psychology. People value what unfolds gradually, not what is handed to them instantly. And understand this clearly. Silence is not about being distant or cold. That's a mistake many men make when they first hear this idea. Controlled silence is warm, present, and intentional. You listen deeply. You observe. You respond thoughtfully. You don't rush. You don't interrupt. You don't speak just to fill space. That is the difference. That is what separates a man who understands how to fall in love through emotional intelligence from one who is simply trying to impress. Be the man who can sit in a moment without needing to control it with words. Be the man who lets eye contact linger a little longer. Be the man who smiles instead of explaining. Be the man who answers simply and leaves space afterward. That is where attraction breathes. That is where connection grows. Because when you stop talking just to be heard, you start being felt, and being felt is far more powerful. Silence isn't emptiness. It's control. It's awareness. It's discipline. It shows that you are not driven by impulse, but guided by intention. And in a world where everyone is talking, posting, explaining, and proving, your silence becomes rare. It becomes magnetic. It becomes something people notice without understanding why. That is the quiet power most men overlook, yet it is one of the strongest psychology tricks tied directly to female psychology and the deeper mechanics of how to fall in love. So remember this. Don't chase attention with words. Let your presence earn it. Don't rush to explain yourself. Let people experience you. Don't fear silence. Use it, shape it, own it. Because the man who masters controlled silence doesn't just communicate, he commands attention without asking for it. And that is a different level entirely. If this hit you, don't just scroll past it, own it. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp, no-nonsense wisdom, and start practicing the power most men ignore. Then drop this in the comments to lock it in your mind. My silence is my strength. Habit number 5, physical presence. Habit number 5, physical presence. Before you ever open your mouth, your body has already introduced you. It has already made a statement. It has already decided whether people lean in or look past you. That is the reality most men ignore. They focus on what to say, but forget how they show up. And here's the truth. Presence speaks louder than words ever will. A high-value man understands this deeply. He knows that attraction doesn't start with conversation. It starts with energy, posture, and control. Stand straight. Not stiff, not forced, just aligned. Shoulders back, chin level, eyes forward. That is not arrogance. That is clarity. That is a man who is comfortable in his own skin. When you walk into a room, don't drift in like you're asking for permission. Walk like you've already earned your place. Slow your pace. Control your steps. Each movement should feel deliberate, not accidental. Because when your body is calm, your message becomes powerful. This is how masculine energy is felt before it is explained. Don't rush. Most men move too fast. They gesture too much. They react too quickly. And in doing so, they leak uncertainty. You must do the opposite. Slow down your hands. Let your movements breathe. When you reach for something, do it with intention. When you turn your head, do it smoothly. That is control. That is presence. That is what begins to attract women without a single word spoken. Because calm movement signals calm thinking, and calm thinking signals strength. Don't fidget. That nervous tapping, the constant shifting, the restless hands, it tells a story you don't want to tell. It says, I'm unsure. I'm uncomfortable. I don't fully belong. And whether you realize it or not, people pick up on that instantly. Especially women. They read the subtle signals. They feel the tension. And attraction fades before it even begins. So be still. Let silence and stillness work for you. A high-value man is not afraid of stillness. He uses it as a weapon. Don't shrink yourself. This is where many men lose without even knowing it. They make themselves smaller to fit in. They lower their posture. They soften their presence. They try not to take up space. But listen carefully, confidence is not about taking space from others. It's about not giving up your own. You must hold your ground. Sit fully in your chair. Stand fully on your feet. Own your space without apology. That is what it means to embody masculine energy in a way that feels natural, not forced. Your body should communicate one simple message: I belong here. Not because you said it, not because you proved it, but because you are it. That kind of certainty cannot be faked with words. It must be lived through posture, movement, and presence. When you carry yourself this way, people feel it. They may not even understand why, but they respect it. They respond to it. And yes, it quietly helps you attract women who are drawn to grounded, centered energy. Presence isn't about size. It's not about being the tallest man in the room, the loudest voice, or the most decorated. It's about certainty. A smaller man with absolute certainty will outshine a larger man filled with hesitation every single time. Why? Because certainty is magnetic. It pulls attention. It creates comfort. It builds trust. And in a world full of noise and chaos, a man who is calm and certain becomes incredibly rare. Be aware of your breathing. Slow it down. Deepen it. Because your breath controls your state. And your state controls your presence. If your breathing is rushed, your body will follow. If your breathing is steady, your movements will align with it. That is internal control translating into external power. This is not theory. This is practice. This is discipline. This is how a high-value man separates himself without needing validation. And here's the deeper layer. Physical presence is not just about how others see you. It's about how you experience yourself. When you stand strong, move with intention, and hold your space, you begin to feel different. More grounded. More focused. More in control. And that internal shift changes everything. Your voice becomes steadier. Your eye contact becomes stronger. Your decisions become clearer. This is the foundation of masculine energy that others can feel instantly. So don't underestimate this habit. It's quiet, but it's powerful. It doesn't shout, but it commands. It doesn't chase, but it attracts. You don't need more words. You don't need clever lines. You need presence. Real, grounded, undeniable presence. That is what makes people stop. That is what makes them listen. That is what makes them remember you. Be still. Be intentional. Be certain. That is the standard. Habit number 6, emotional boundaries. Habit number 6, emotional boundaries. And if you miss this, you miss everything. A man who reacts to everything is a man controlled by everything. Don't do that. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every person deserves your time. That is the line. That is the standard. A grounded man understands where he ends and where others begin, and he protects that space with quiet certainty. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't explain himself endlessly. He simply decides and then acts accordingly. When someone disrespects you, don't argue to prove your worth. Step back. Withdraw access. Let your absence speak. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That is old Stoic wisdom in action. That is how an iron mind is built, by refusing to be pulled into every emotional storm that passes by. In modern life, where messages, opinions, and noise come at you from every direction, social media, work stress, relationships, this becomes even more critical. You must filter. You must choose. You must decide what gets your attention and what gets ignored. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about choosing who gets closer. That is the difference. Boundaries aren't walls. They are filters. They don't isolate you. They refine your world. They protect your peace, and in doing so, they quietly increase your value. People notice a man who doesn't react impulsively. People respect a man who doesn't tolerate disrespect. People are drawn to a man who is calm, centered, and selective. That is Stoicism win in real life, not theory, not philosophy on paper, but discipline in action. You don't need to announce your standards. Live them. You don't need to fight for respect. Enforce it with your behavior. If someone crosses the line, you don't negotiate with chaos. You remove yourself from it. Clean, simple, final. As Epictetus taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That is a hard truth, but it is also freedom. Because if your reaction is your responsibility, then your peace is your power. And a man with that level of control carries a different presence. He doesn't seek validation. He attracts it. He doesn't chase attention. He commands it by being unavailable to nonsense. This is where most men get it wrong. They think attraction comes from doing more, saying more, giving more. No, it comes from restraint. It comes from knowing when to step back. It comes from having an iron mind that does not bend under emotional pressure. You must practice this daily. When someone tries to pull you into drama, pause. When someone tests your limits, observe. When something triggers you, breathe. Then decide. Always decide. Never react blindly. That is how you separate yourself. That is how you rise above the noise. That is how you embody old Stoic wisdom in a modern world that constantly tries to break your focus. And understand this clearly. Every time you enforce a boundary, you are telling the world how to treat you. Every time you ignore disrespect, you are teaching people that it is acceptable. So choose carefully. Be intentional. Be disciplined. This is not about being distant. This is about being precise. The right people will respect your standards. The wrong people will fall away. Let them. That is not loss. That is clarity. That is Stoicism win. And when you live like this long enough, something powerful happens. You stop needing control over others because you have mastered control over yourself. That is the ultimate advantage. That is the quiet power of a man who knows his worth and protects it without apology. If this hit you, then you already understand something most men never learn. Your peace is your power. Stop reacting to everything. Stop giving access to everyone. Stand firm. Choose who gets your time, your energy, your attention. That's how respect is built. That's how value is felt. Now prove it to yourself. Drop this in the comments. I protect my peace and I choose my worth. Habit number 7, selective attention. Habit number 7 is selective attention, and if you understand this, you unlock one of the most powerful psychology tricks in modern life. Where your attention goes, your value follows. That is not just a saying, it is a law. A high-value man does not scatter his focus like loose change. He directs it with intention. He guards it. He invests it. Because attention is not free, it is currency. And every time you give it away carelessly, you lower your perceived worth without even realizing it. Don't respond to everything. Don't jump at every notification. Don't train the world to believe you are always available. That is how you become predictable. And predictability kills intrigue. It weakens attraction. It removes tension. In female psychology, mystery and emotional control create curiosity. Curiosity creates attraction. And attraction is the first step in how to fall in love. Be selective. That is the rule. Be deliberate with who gets your time, your energy, your presence. When you respond too quickly to everything, when you engage with every distraction, you send a silent message. I have nothing better going on. And people feel that, even if they don't say it. But when you pause, when you choose your moments, when your attention is not easily earned, You rise in value. You become someone people think about, someone they wait for, someone they respect. This is one of the oldest psychology tricks, yet most men ignore it because they confuse attention with kindness. No, attention is power. Use it with discipline. Focus on what truly matters: your purpose, your growth, your standards. That is where your attention should live. Because when a man is focused, grounded, and intentional, he naturally becomes more attractive. Not because he is trying to impress, but because he is not trying at all. That is the paradox. The less you chase, the more you attract. The more you control your attention, the more others want it. In female psychology, emotional independence is magnetic. A man who is not easily pulled into every conversation, every drama, every fleeting distraction, that man stands out. He feels rare, and rarity creates desire. Don't misunderstand this. Selective attention is not about ignoring people or playing games. It is about self-respect. It is about knowing that your time is limited, your energy is valuable, and not everyone deserves access to it. That is how to fall in love the right way, not by overgiving, not by over-explaining, not by overreacting, but by showing up with presence, clarity, and control. When you give attention, make it meaningful, make it intentional, make it felt. Because when something is not always available, it becomes more valuable. And here is the deeper truth most men overlook. The way you manage your attention shapes your entire life. If you let distractions control you, your life becomes scattered. If you control your attention, your life becomes focused, strong, directed. That is why this is more than attraction. This is mastery. Master your attention, and you master your emotions. Master your emotions, and you master your relationships. This is the foundation behind all effective psychology tricks, all understanding of female psychology, and ultimately, the real path in how to fall in love without losing yourself. So remember this. Attention is currency. Spend it like a man who knows his worth. Not cheaply, not impulsively, but with intention, with clarity, with purpose. Because when you control where your attention goes, you control the direction of your life, and that is where real power begins. Habit number 8, emotional restraint. Habit number 8, emotional restraint. Feeling is human. Never deny that. But spilling every emotion into the room, reacting to every trigger, every shift, every bit of tension, that is not depth, that is lack of control. And control is the quiet backbone of a high-value man. You must understand this. Emotions are signals, not commands. They inform you, but they do not own you. Don't let every mood dictate your behavior. Don't let every external situation pull you off center. Be still first, then decide. Pause. That is your power move. In a world where most people react instantly, text back too fast, argue too quickly, show frustration too openly, you do the opposite. You pause. You observe. You take in the full picture before you respond. That is where masculine energy begins to separate itself from noise. It's not loud. It's not rushed. It's deliberate. And that calm deliberation? It's magnetic. It makes people lean in, not pull away. Think about it. When tension rises, when a woman tests your patience, when emotions run high, most men lose their frame. They react. They explain. They defend. They try to fix everything in the moment. Don't. That is where attraction quietly slips away. Instead, hold your ground. Stay composed. Speak less, but mean more. A high-value man does not chase emotional stability. He embodies it. He becomes the steady point in the chaos. Respond, not react. That line is everything. Reaction is instinct. Response is mastery. Reaction is emotional impulse. Response is controlled intention. And women feel that difference instantly. One creates uncertainty. The other creates safety and intrigue at the same time. That is how you attract women without saying much. Your presence speaks before your words do. Be a man who can feel deeply but remain grounded. That combination is rare. Anyone can shut down emotionally. That's not strength. And anyone can explode emotionally. That's not strength either. True strength is balance. You feel everything, but you choose what to show, when to show it, and how to express it. That is emotional discipline. That is refined masculine energy. Don't mistake silence for suppression. Don't confuse calm with indifference. You are not ignoring your emotions, you are leading them. You are deciding which ones deserve action and which ones deserve space. That is maturity. That is growth. And that is what sets a high-value man apart from the rest. In modern life, everything pushes you to react fast. Social media, messages, expectations, pressure. But you must resist that pull. Slow down your responses. Create space between feeling and action. That space is where your power lives. That space is where clarity is built. And clarity is attractive. It shows you are not controlled by the world. You are centered within yourself. A woman will notice this, even if she can't explain it. She will feel your steadiness, your calm, your ability to not get shaken by small things. And that feeling? It draws her in. Because deep down, people are tired of emotional chaos. They crave someone who brings peace, not pressure. Stability, not drama. So don't react to every mood swing. Don't engage in every emotional test. Don't try to win every moment. Be selective. Be intentional. Be composed. That is how you protect your energy. That is how you increase your value. And that is how you naturally attract women, not by chasing, not by forcing, but by becoming rare. And remember this, rarity is always attractive. Not because it tries to be, but because it refuses to be common. If this message speaks to you, don't just listen, apply it. Like the video, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and subscribe for more timeless wisdom. Now make it real. Anchor it in your mind. Comment this below. I stay calm, I stay in control, and I respond with strength. Habit number 9. Radical intentionality. The end of maybe. Radical intentionality. Habit number 9. Radical intentionality. The absolute end of maybe. Burn that word out of your vocabulary. Because nothing quietly destroys attraction faster than hesitation dressed up as politeness. A man who constantly says, I don't know, what do you want, is not being agreeable. He is revealing a lack of direction. And without direction, there is no trust. Without trust, there is no attraction. Understand this deeply. In a world overflowing with options, distractions, and noise, the rare man is the one who chooses. Clearly, calmly, without apology. That is power. That is presence. That is what separates the average from the unforgettable. A high-quality woman is not looking for perfection. She is looking for certainty. She wants to feel that the man in front of her knows where he is going, even if the path is not perfect. Because certainty creates emotional safety. And safety creates connection. This is where old Stoic wisdom becomes your advantage. A man grounded in principle does not drift through life reacting to everything around him. He moves with intention, guided by an inner compass. As Marcus Aurelius said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That is clarity. That is discipline. That is the standard you must hold. Radical intentionality is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It shows up in the smallest decisions. You choose the restaurant before the date even begins. You pick the time. You plan the flow of the evening. Not to control, but to lead. Leadership is not force. Leadership is direction. And direction removes friction. It makes things easy. It allows the moment to unfold without confusion. In modern life, where most men hesitate, delay, and overthink, your decisiveness becomes magnetic. It signals that you are not guessing your way through life, you are building it. Stop softening your language. Stop diluting your intent. Words matter. Maybe is uncertainty. I guess is hesitation. Replace them with clarity. Say, let's meet at 7. Say, we're going here. Say, this is what I want. Not aggressively. Not arrogantly. Calmly. Directly. Like a man who has already decided who he is. This is the energy of an iron mind. You are not rushing. You are not forcing. You are simply not wavering. And that steadiness is rare. That steadiness is attractive. Look around. Most men are stuck in loops of indecision. They wait for the perfect moment. They seek constant validation. They adjust themselves to please everyone. And in doing so, they lose their center. You will not do that. You will operate differently. You will think ahead. You will act with purpose. You will remove unnecessary hesitation from your life. Because every time you delay a decision, you train yourself to doubt. And doubt is the enemy of presence. As Seneca taught, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Indecision is wasted time. Hesitation is wasted energy. You do not have the luxury to drift. Not if you want to live fully. Not if you want to become a man who stands out. A man practicing Stoicism understands this. He treats his time as valuable. He treats his choices as deliberate. He does not float, he directs. And here is the deeper truth. Radical intentionality is not just about attracting women. It is about mastering your life. The same mindset that leads a confident date leads a disciplined body, a focused career, and a clear future. You don't randomly eat, you choose what fuels you. You don't randomly scroll, you choose what builds you. You don't randomly connect, you choose who aligns with your path. Everything becomes intentional. Everything becomes aligned. Repeat this until it becomes your standard. Clarity over comfort. Decision over delay. Direction over doubt. You must train yourself to act, to choose, to move forward even when things are not perfect. Because perfection is a trap. Action is progress. And progress builds confidence. The more you decide, the stronger you become. The more you act, the sharper your instincts grow. This is how you build an iron mind, through repeated, deliberate action. Women feel this before they understand it. They feel your presence, your grounded energy, your lack of hesitation. It tells them something powerful. This man can be trusted with a future, not because he says it, but because he demonstrates it. Through his choices, through his words, through his consistency. That is what makes you different. That is what makes you respected. So eliminate maybe, remove confusion, speak with intent, move with purpose, decide your path and walk it without constant second guessing. This is not about being perfect. This is about being clear. This is old Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. This is Stoicism in action. And when you live this way, fully, deliberately, unapologetically, you stop being overlooked. You stop blending in. You become the man others naturally look to. The man who leads without forcing. The man who knows. The man who chooses. Habit number 10. Emotional unshakability. Habit number 10 is emotional unshakability, and you need to understand this clearly. This is not just a trait, it is a signal, a message you send without speaking, and in today's world, where reactions are instant and emotions are displayed without restraint, a man who stays composed stands out immediately. Don't rush to react. Don't let every inconvenience pull you off center. Be the man who pauses, who observes, who chooses his response with intention, because that is where true presence is built. And that is exactly where psychology tricks and female psychology begin to work in your favor, whether you realize it or not. Think about it. Most younger men are caught in a loop of reacting, traffic, messages, social media, small disrespect, and every reaction chips away at their image. But you must be different. You must understand that every moment is an opportunity to demonstrate control, and control is attractive because it signals safety, stability, and strength without needing to prove anything loudly. Women, consciously or subconsciously, are always reading emotional signals, and female psychology is wired to notice who remains steady when things go wrong, who can be relied on when tension rises, who doesn't collapse under pressure. And this is not about suppressing emotions. Don't misunderstand it. It is about mastering them, about feeling everything but choosing what to show and when to show it. That is the difference. That is how to fall in love with life itself first, so others naturally gravitate toward you. You must train this like a discipline, not a theory. Start with the simple but powerful 3-second gap. When something triggers you, pause, breathe, hold your reaction. Those 3 seconds are not empty. They are full of control, full of awareness, full of decision. And in that space, you separate yourself from the crowd because most people never create that gap. They live in reaction mode, but you don't. You lead yourself first. Don't argue over things that don't matter. Don't try to win every conversation. Be selective with your energy, because a man who is emotionally unshakable does not need to prove he is right. He simply remains grounded. And that grounded energy becomes magnetic. It draws people in, it builds curiosity, it creates respect without effort. In modern life, where chaos is constant and attention is scattered, your calm becomes rare, and rarity always increases value. So be that rare man, the one who does not get pulled into every emotional storm, the one who can sit in silence without discomfort, the one who listens more than he speaks, because silence, when controlled, is not emptiness, it is presence, it is weight, it is power. And understand this deeply. Emotional unshakability is one of the most effective psychology tricks you can develop because it changes how people perceive you instantly. It shifts the dynamic in every interaction, especially in attraction. Because female psychology responds to consistency and emotional stability far more than to loud displays or constant validation. And when a woman feels that you are not easily shaken, she begins to feel safe around you. She begins to trust your presence. And that trust is the foundation of how to fall in love in a mature, meaningful way. Don't be the man who reacts to every message immediately. Don't be the man who gets frustrated over small delays. Don't be the man who needs constant reassurance. Instead, be calm, be centered, be deliberate. Because that energy communicates that you have options, that you have a life, that you are not dependent on external validation to feel secure. And here's the truth most men overlook. Emotional control is not about others, it is about you. It is about your standards, your discipline, your ability to lead yourself regardless of circumstances. Because if you cannot control your reactions, you cannot control your direction in life. And if you cannot control your direction, you cannot build anything meaningful, whether it is success, respect, or deep connection. So train yourself daily. When something annoys you, pause. When something excites you, don't rush. When something challenges you, stay steady. Build that internal strength step by step, because over time, this becomes your default state, and once it does, everything changes. Your conversations become more impactful, your presence becomes more noticeable, your relationships become more balanced, and you naturally embody the kind of man that others respect and are drawn to without needing explanation. All right, gentlemen, that's where we wrap this up. Listen closely. Your age is not something to hide, it's something to use. Life has already trained you. Every mistake, every lesson, every hard moment, it built something inside you that younger men simply don't have yet. So don't shrink. Don't apologize. Stand firm in it. Be the man who stays steady when things get uncertain. Be the man who doesn't chase validation, but creates value. That is what people feel. That is what naturally draws others in. And here's the truth. Don't try to become someone else. Refine who you already are. Sharpen your habits. Hold your frame. Stay consistent. Because a man who is calm, grounded, and clear about his direction becomes impossible to ignore. If this message speaks to you, take it seriously. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Take care of yourself, stay sharp, and keep building that unshakable presence. See you in the next one. Older men don't realize this is why younger women smile at them. Psychology tricks. Welcome to our channel. It's Stoicism Win, where you find interesting and useful knowledge from the Stoic philosophers to lead a happy and good life. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And that matters here, because many men do not miss signals from younger women because the signals are not there. They miss them because they have been trained to doubt what they see before they even allow themselves to understand it. There is a moment you have probably lived through more often than you admit. A younger woman looks at you, not for too long, not in some dramatic way, but just long enough to make you feel it. Then she smiles. It is subtle. It is quiet. But it lands. And almost immediately, you dismiss it. You tell yourself she is only being polite. You assume she smiles at everyone. You convince yourself it means nothing. This is what many older men do, not because they are foolish, but because they no longer trust their own perception. That doubt was not born in a day. It was built over years of quiet messages from the world telling them that attraction belongs only to youth, that interest fades with age, and that if a younger woman notices them at all, it must be meaningless. So they learned to look away too soon. They trained themselves to reject the signal before the mind could even examine it. But here's the truth few men hear explained clearly: that smile may not have been random at all. It may not have been loud because real human behavior is rarely loud. The most meaningful signals are often the softest ones. People reveal interest in small ways first, then wait to see who is calm enough, sharp enough, and self-assured enough to notice. The men who understand this do not rush, fantasize, or overreact. They simply pay attention. They see patterns. They understand that human nature often whispers before it speaks. And the men who miss these moments are not broken. They have simply been living without the full picture. So let's slow this down and look at what is really happening. 1. Confidence without performance. Confidence without performance. That's the part most men overlook, and it quietly changes everything. When a younger woman smiles at you, your first instinct is to explain it away, to shrink the moment before it has a chance to mean anything, because somewhere along the line you are taught that attraction must be earned through effort, through clever words, through constant display. That is how younger men often operate, performing, adjusting, chasing signals. But here's what you must understand. What you stopped doing is exactly what's being noticed. You're no longer scanning the room for validation. You're not bending your personality to match expectations. You're not trying to win approval from every pair of eyes that passes by. You are simply present. And that presence carries weight. Don't underestimate that. Be still enough to recognize it. Because real confidence is not loud, not rehearsed, not forced. That is the quiet power that female psychology responds to before logic even steps in. You don't announce confidence, you embody it. It shows in how you stand, how you move, how you take your time instead of rushing to prove something. It shows in your lack of urgency. That is what creates tension, not anxiety, but a subtle, magnetic pull. And here's where most men miss the deeper layer of psychology tricks. Attraction often begins below awareness. When a younger woman smiles at you in a coffee shop, in a hallway, in a fleeting moment where no words are exchanged, her mind hasn't yet constructed a reason. Her body has already responded. That is female psychology in motion, fast, intuitive, and honest. She didn't sit there and decide, I will smile at this man. No, she felt something first. A sense of calm. A sense of grounded energy. A sense that you are not trying to take anything from her. And that matters more than you think. Don't rush to label it. Don't dismiss it. Be the man who notices without needing to chase. Because here's the truth. Attraction is not always about what you do. It's about what you don't do. You don't interrupt the moment with insecurity. You don't break your frame to seek confirmation. You don't turn a simple smile into a performance test. That is where many men lose their edge. Be disciplined. Be composed. Let the moment breathe. This is where psychology tricks become practical, understanding that stillness can communicate more than action. Understanding that restraint can be more attractive than pursuit. And if you're wondering how this connects to how to fall in love, the answer is simple but often ignored. People don't fall for effort alone. They fall for how they feel in your presence. That feeling is shaped by your energy, your pace, your ability to remain centered. A man who is comfortable with silence, comfortable with himself, creates a space where attraction can grow naturally. Don't force it. Don't rush it. Be the man who allows it. That is how to fall in love, not by chasing intensity, but by building a calm, steady presence that others are drawn to without fully understanding why. And yes, this may feel unfamiliar if you've spent years believing you needed to prove your worth. But let that go. Replace performance with presence. Replace urgency with patience. Replace doubt with quiet certainty. Because when you do, something shifts. You stop seeking reactions and instead, you start creating them effortlessly. That smile you once dismissed? It becomes a signal you understand, not overanalyze. It becomes part of a pattern you recognize, not something you explain away. And the more you understand these psychology tricks, the more you see that attraction is not a game of loud moves, it's a game of subtle signals. Female psychology responds to what is felt, not what is advertised. So don't try to impress. Don't try to be someone else. Be grounded. Be intentional. Be calm. That is the difference. That is the edge. And that is why those small, quiet smiles happen more often than you think. They're not accidents. They're responses to a presence that doesn't need to ask for attention to receive it. 2. Emotional safety and ease. There's a quiet truth most men miss, and it lives in moments so small they're easy to dismiss. A glance, a pause, a soft smile that lingers just long enough to be felt, but not long enough to be explained. And you tell yourself it's nothing, but don't rush past it. Don't minimize what your instincts already understand. Because that smile, yes, that one, is not just politeness. It is information. It is feedback. And if you're paying attention, it reveals something deeper about who you are becoming. But here's where it gets more interesting. That smile isn't only about admiration. It's also about safety. Not the loud, heroic kind. Not the kind that demands attention. The subtle kind. Emotional safety. The kind a woman feels without needing to explain it. The kind that settles her nervous system without asking for permission. That is what you must understand. Because a high-value man doesn't chase reactions. He creates environments. And in that environment, people relax. Think about it. Men who constantly explain themselves, who try to control every interaction, who feel the need to impress, persuade, or win the moment, those men create pressure. Not intentionally, but it's there. It's in the tone. It's in the timing. It's in the energy. And people feel it. Women feel it even faster. Don't be that man. Be the one who doesn't need to prove anything. Be the one who allows silence without discomfort. That is masculine energy at its most grounded level. Because when you stop trying to steer every moment, something powerful happens. She doesn't feel managed. She doesn't feel evaluated. She doesn't feel like she's being measured against some invisible standard. Instead, she feels free. Free to breathe. Free to exist. Even if it's just for a few seconds. And that is rare. That kind of emotional ease is not common. In a world full of noise, performance, and constant tension, a man who brings calm becomes unforgettable. That's why this smile appears. Not because you said something clever, not because you tried to attract women with lines or tactics, but because your presence removed pressure, and her body responded before her mind had time to analyze it. That is the level you want to operate on. Not surface attraction, not quick validation, but something deeper, something instinctive, something real. Understand this clearly. Stability is attractive, but not in the way most men think. It's not about being boring. It's not about playing it safe. It's about being internally steady. Your emotions are yours. You don't hand them out to every situation. You don't react to every shift in tone or mood. You observe. You choose. You respond with intention. That is control. That is discipline. And that is what defines a high-value man. And here's the part many overlook. Ease is more powerful than intensity. Intensity can impress. It can create sparks. But ease creates trust. And trust is what lingers after the moment ends. When a woman smiles at you in that subtle, almost unnoticeable way, she's not reacting to what you're doing. She's responding to how she feels around you. And if she feels calm, unpressured, and seen without being judged, that's when the connection begins. So don't chase the smile. Don't perform for it. That is the mistake. The more you reach for it, the more it disappears. Instead, become the kind of man who makes it inevitable. A man whose masculine energy is quiet but undeniable. A man who doesn't need attention but naturally holds it. A man who understands that to attract women, you don't add more. You remove what is unnecessary. The tension, the neediness, the overthinking. Be simple. Be grounded. Be present. And most importantly, trust what you see. Don't talk yourself out of your own experiences. That doubt, it doesn't mean anything that's learned. That's conditioning. But reality is much more honest. People respond to how you make them feel. Always. without exception. So the next time it happens, don't look away. Don't shrink the moment. Just notice it. Let it land. And move forward without needing to label it. That is confidence. Quiet, steady, and self-contained. Because in the end, a high-value man doesn't need constant confirmation. He understands the language of subtlety. He reads energy, not just words. And in that space, where there is no pressure, no performance, no need to impress, that's where real attraction lives. And if that truth hits you, don't ignore it, own it. Drop this in the comments right now. I create calm, not pressure. Like the video, subscribe for more grounded, powerful insight, and remember this. When you stop trying to impress, you become the man she feels safe around. And that's where real attraction begins. 3. Outdated self-perception. Outdated self-perception is the quiet force holding many men back, and if you don't confront it, it will quietly rewrite your reality without your permission. You still carry the memory of a younger version of yourself, the one who had to earn attention, prove value, perform just to be seen. You remember when attraction felt like a test you had to pass. So now, when a younger woman looks at you and smiles without effort, without prompting, without conditions, your first instinct is not confidence, it's suspicion. You question it. You downplay it. You dismiss it. But understand this clearly. That reaction is not humility. It is conditioning. It is an outdated self-image still running in the background. As Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And right now, your mind is working against you because it hasn't caught up with who you've become. The world has already updated how it sees you, but you haven't updated how you see yourself. That is the gap. That is the tension. And that is exactly where most men lose their edge without even realizing it. You must correct this. You must recalibrate. You must step into the man you already are, not the one you used to be. Because here's the truth grounded in old Stoic wisdom. Value that is built over time does not need to announce itself. It is felt. It is recognized. It is quietly respected. When you carry yourself with an iron mind, when your presence is calm, grounded, and self-contained, people respond to that energy automatically. You don't chase attention anymore. Attention comes to you. And yet, if your internal identity is still stuck in the past, you will reject the very thing you once worked for. That is self-sabotage at the highest level. Modern life amplifies this problem. Social media, cultural narratives, constant comparison, they all reinforce the idea that youth is the peak and everything after is decline. That is noise. That is distraction. That is not reality. Reality is this. Experience sharpens perception, discipline builds presence, and emotional control creates stability, and stability is rare. Extremely rare. And rarity is what attracts. This is why younger women notice you. Not because you are trying harder, but because you are no longer trying at all. That is the shift. That is the signal. And if you don't recognize it, you will continue to play small in moments where you should stand firm. The principles of Stoicism win in these situations because they teach you to detach from old narratives and align with truth. Not the story you've been telling yourself, but the reality in front of you. You must stop asking, is this really for me? And start stating, this is the result of who I've become. That is the mindset of an iron mind. That is how you reclaim authority over your perception. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. And embodiment is exactly what is required here. Don't overanalyze the smile. Don't shrink in the moment. Don't retreat into old doubts. Stand still. Hold eye contact. Accept the interaction without needing to define it. That is strength. That is clarity. That is presence. Because the man who is still seeking validation reacts. The man who has internalized his value simply observes and chooses. This is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. When your internal identity matches your external reality, there is no friction, no hesitation, no second guessing, just calm certainty. And that certainty is what makes you magnetic. You must train yourself to operate from this place daily, in conversations, in silence, in how you walk into a room, in how you leave it, Every action either reinforces your outdated identity or builds your current one. Choose wisely. Because once you fully integrate the shift, everything changes. You stop chasing signals. You start recognizing patterns. You stop questioning your worth. You start expressing it without words. That is the quiet power of old Stoic wisdom. That is the foundation of Stoicism win. And that is the mindset of a man with an iron mind. So when that moment happens again, and it will, don't look away. Don't dismiss it. Don't reduce it to coincidence. Receive it. Stand in it. Let it confirm what you already know but haven't fully accepted yet. The door is not closed. It has already opened. The only question now is whether you have the awareness, the discipline, and the courage to walk through it. 4. Unpressured energy. There's a layer to this dynamic that most men completely overlook, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. A younger woman doesn't smile at you simply because you appear confident. She smiles because you carry an unpressured energy that most men around her lack. And that difference is everything. You're not leaning in with need. You're not chasing validation. You're not silently asking for approval with your eyes, your tone, or your body language. That is rare. That is felt instantly. In a world where so many interactions are loaded with expectation, where conversations feel like negotiations, where attention often comes with a hidden cost, your presence feels different because it asks for nothing. That is what disarms her. That is what softens her guard. That is what creates the moment. Understand this clearly. People relax around those who don't need anything from them. They open up around those who are not trying to take. This is one of the most powerful psychology tricks you will ever understand, and it sits at the core of female psychology, whether most men realize it or not. When you are unpressured, you give her space to just be. She doesn't feel evaluated. She doesn't feel like she has to perform, impress, or protect herself. She doesn't feel pulled into a silent game. That is rare. That is attractive. Don't rush the interaction. Don't try to control the outcome. Don't fill every silence with noise. Be the man who is comfortable in stillness, because stillness communicates strength far louder than words ever could. That is the energy that changes the emotional temperature of a room without effort. And here's where it becomes even more important for you to understand. This has nothing to do with tricks in the superficial sense, but everything to do with internal alignment. You're not pretending to be calm. You are calm. You're not acting detached. You are grounded. That is why it works. That is why these psychology tricks rooted in real self-control and awareness align perfectly with deeper female psychology. Women are highly attuned to emotional pressure, even when it's subtle, and most men unknowingly carry it into every interaction. You must remove that pressure. You must stop needing the moment to go a certain way, because the moment you need something, you tighten the space. And the moment you tighten the space, she feels it. She may not explain it logically, but she will respond to it emotionally. Now flip that. When you don't need anything, when you're simply present, when you allow the moment to unfold without forcing it, she feels free. And freedom is what opens the door to curiosity, connection, and yes, even how to fall in love. Because love, real connection, never grows under pressure. It grows in space. It grows where there is ease. It grows where someone feels safe to be themselves without being pulled or pushed. That is the environment you create when you master this. So be clear with yourself. Stop chasing reactions. Stop measuring your worth by immediate responses. Stop trying to impress. Instead, hold your ground. Be steady. Be composed. That is what creates the subtle pull you're beginning to notice. That smile you receive is not random. It is a response to the absence of pressure. It is a signal that she feels comfortable in your presence, even if only for a brief moment. And that comfort is the foundation of everything deeper. If you want to understand how to fall in love or how to attract meaningful attention, start here. Master your internal state. Remove the need. Let your presence do the work. Because in the end, the man who controls himself never has to control the moment, and that is the quiet advantage that most never learn, but every woman can feel. If this hit you, don't scroll past it, own it. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp insights, and most importantly, anchor this mindset into who you are. Drop this in the comments right now. I bring calm, not pressure. Because the moment you stop chasing the moment is the moment everything starts coming to you. 5. Experience and curiosity. Experience changes a man in ways most people never talk about, and that's exactly where your real advantage begins. Not the loud, storytelling kind of experience. Not the kind you bring up to impress. The quiet kind. The kind that lives in your posture, your timing, your restraint. Younger men live in anticipation. They lean forward, waiting for something to happen. Older men, if they've done the inner work, live in recall. You've already seen how things unfold. You've watched the same patterns repeat in different faces, different places, different years. That is not theory. That is lived truth. And because of that, you move differently. Slower, but sharper. Calmer, but more precise. That is masculine energy at its most refined. You must understand this. When you stop chasing outcomes, you start controlling presence. And presence is what people feel before you even speak. A high-value man doesn't rush to fill silence. He doesn't scramble to prove relevance. He doesn't lean in with urgency. That is what separates you. That is what allows you to attract women without effort looking like effort. You're not trying to win the moment. You've already outgrown the need to win anything at all. That is power, quiet, stable, and undeniable. And when a younger woman smiles at you, something deeper is happening beneath the surface. It's easy to misread it. Easy to label it as attraction, politeness, or a chance. But look closer. That smile carries curiosity. Not just romantic curiosity, existential curiosity. She may not articulate it, but her system is asking, how did he become this? What does he see that I don't yet see? What does it feel like to be at ease in your own skin? You are not just a man in that moment. You are a possibility she hasn't explored yet. That's why the smile isn't loud. It's brief, measured, almost like a question mark, because it is a probe, not a flirtation, not a promise, a probe. And here is where most men lose without realizing it. They misinterpret the signal and react instead of respond. They spike, talk too much, joke too fast, lean in too eagerly. Or they collapse, pull back, doubt themselves, shut down emotionally. Both responses break the frame. Both reveal that the internal stability isn't fully there yet. Don't do that. Don't rush to define the moment. Don't turn curiosity into pressure. Be still. Let it breathe. A high-value man understands that not every moment needs to become something. That is what makes him rare. That is what allows him to attract women naturally, because he is not trying to extract anything from the interaction. He is simply present, grounded, and complete as he is. That is masculine energy in its highest form. Not forceful, not performative, but settled, rooted, certain. You must become comfortable with not knowing where things are going, because paradoxically, that's when things begin to open. When you don't chase meaning, meaning reveals itself. Slowly, naturally, without resistance. Think about it. You've already lived enough life to recognize patterns. You know where overeffort leads. You know where emotional urgency creates imbalance. You've seen how trying too hard pushes people away, while calm certainty draws them in. So why abandon that wisdom in a single moment? Why trade depth for reaction? Don't shrink back into old habits. Stay where you are, centered, observant, composed. Because when you hold that frame, something subtle happens. The probe doesn't close. It expands. The curiosity lingers. She feels it, not as pressure, not as expectation, but as space. And people are drawn to spaces where they can breathe, where they are not evaluated, where they are not rushed. That is why your presence becomes magnetic without effort. A high-value man doesn't chase signals. He allows them to unfold. He doesn't interpret every smile as opportunity. He understands that connection is not built in a single exchange. It's revealed over time. And because he is not attached to immediate outcomes, he remains steady. That steadiness is what makes him unforgettable. So the next time it happens, and it will, notice your instinct. Notice the urge to react, to perform, to turn a simple moment into something bigger than it needs to be. And then do the opposite. Be calm, be grounded, be unmoved. Let the moment exist without interference. That is strength. That is control. And here's the truth most men overlook. The goal is not to make her stay. The goal is to remain yourself. Because when you stay rooted in who you are, when your masculine energy is not shaken by small interactions, you naturally attract women who resonate with that frequency. Not through effort, not through tactics, but through presence. So don't chase the smile. Don't define it too quickly. Let it be what it is, a quiet signal, a moment of curiosity, a subtle acknowledgement of something in you that stands apart. And if you meet it with calm, with clarity, with self-containment, you don't just pass the test. You become the answer she was looking for without ever trying to be. 6. Containment and psychological weight. Containment and psychological weight. This is where surface-level advice falls apart and where real understanding begins. Most people will tell you, just be confident, as if confidence is some switch you flip. That's incomplete. That's shallow. What actually moves people, what makes a younger woman pause, look, and smile, is something far more refined. It's containment. It's the quiet discipline of a man who has lived enough life to no longer leak energy in every direction. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That is the essence here. A man grounded in old Stoic wisdom does not react to every stimulus. He does not chase validation. He does not perform. He contains himself. And in that containment, there is weight. Not heaviness, not tension, density, presence. When you walk into a room with that kind of energy, you don't need to announce it. People feel it, especially women who are used to noise, to men who overtalk, overshare, overreach. You're different. And difference, when rooted in control, is magnetic. Younger men are often still trying to figure out who they are, constantly adjusting, constantly seeking approval, constantly asking, am I enough? You're past that. Or at least, you must be. That is your edge. That is your advantage. You must understand this clearly. Attraction is not always about excitement. It is often about relief. Relief from chaos. Relief from unpredictability. Relief from emotional pressure. When you embody Stoicism win principles, when you operate from an iron mind, you become that relief. You become the calm in a loud environment. You become the man who does not need to impress because he already knows his value. And that certainty, quiet, steady, unspoken, is what creates that subtle smile. She may not even know why she's doing it. She just feels it. She feels that you are not trying to take something from the moment. You are not trying to prove anything. You are simply there. And that presence carries psychological weight. In modern life, where attention is fragmented and everyone is competing for validation through screens, likes, and constant communication, this kind of containment is rare. It stands out sharply. It cuts through the noise. As Epictetus taught, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That is your instruction. Don't talk about being composed. Be composed. Don't announce your worth. Live in a way that makes it obvious. Don't chase reactions. Let reactions come to you. This is old Stoic wisdom applied in real time, in real interactions, in a world that desperately lacks it. And here is the truth you must accept. The smile is not random. It is a response. A response to contrast. A response to your restraint. A response to your ability to hold yourself without spilling into the space around you. You must protect that. You must refine that. Because the moment you start seeking the smile, you lose the very quality that created it. Stay grounded. Stay contained. Stay disciplined. Build that iron mind daily. Through silence. Through observation. Through choosing not to react when reaction is easy. This is how you win, not loudly, not aggressively, but decisively. This is Stoicism win in action. And when you move through life this way, you don't just attract attention, you command respect without asking for it. You create space where others feel safe, where others feel calm, where others feel drawn in without pressure. That is power. Controlled. directed, unspoken. So don't underestimate the value of your years. Don't dismiss the depth you've earned. Use it, refine it, master it. Because in a world full of noise, the man who contains himself becomes impossible to ignore. 7. The silent test. The moment most men misunderstand isn't the smile itself, it's what they think it means. You assume it's either attraction or simple politeness, but that's a narrow way to read a much deeper signal. Sometimes the smile is neither. It's a silent question, a subtle probe rooted in female psychology, a moment where attention replaces words and curiosity replaces intention. Whether you realize it or not, you are being observed, not judged harshly, but gently measured. Who are you beneath the surface? Are you truly as calm as you appear, or is that calm just a mask waiting to crack? This is the silent test, and it unfolds without announcements, without pressure, without rules written in plain sight. Yet it is one of the most powerful psychology tricks embedded in human interaction. Here is where most men lose ground, not because they lack value, but because they react instead of allowing, they rush instead of settling, they try to interpret instead of simply being present. Don't rush to label the moment. Don't assume you need to respond with something clever. Don't chase meaning. Be still. That is where your strength reveals itself. When you flinch, when your eyes dart away too quickly, when your body tightens, when you laugh it off or dismiss the moment, you are not failing. You are simply closing a door that was quietly opening. And the loop of curiosity she initiated remains incomplete. In female psychology, unfinished emotional loops rarely inspire deeper interest. They fade. But when you notice without reacting, when you hold eye contact just long enough without forcing it, when your presence remains steady and unbothered, something shifts. You move from being evaluated to being experienced. And that is where quiet power begins to take shape. Men who react are often trying to control the outcome. Men who chase are trying to secure validation. Men who allow are the ones who understand how to fall in love without losing themselves, how to create space instead of pressure, how to let attraction breathe instead of suffocating it. This is not about playing games. This is about mastering awareness. These are real psychology tricks, not manipulative tactics, but insights into how human connection actually works beneath the surface. Understand this. A woman's smile can be an invitation, but not always to conversation. It can be an invitation to reveal your internal state. Are you grounded? Are you comfortable in silence? Are you at ease with yourself? Ease is contagious and tension is loud, even when no words are spoken. In modern life, where everyone is performing, posting, proving, and seeking attention, the man who does not need to perform stands out immediately. He doesn't fill every gap with noise. He doesn't rush to impress. He doesn't overanalyze every signal. He observes, he feels, he remains centered. That is what makes him intriguing. That is what aligns with deeper layers of female psychology. If you want to understand how to fall in love in a way that is grounded, lasting, and real, you must first learn how to stay present in these small, quiet moments, because love doesn't begin with grand gestures, it begins with subtle recognition, with emotional safety, with the ability to sit in uncertainty without trying to control it. You must train yourself to recognize these moments not as tests you need to pass, but as opportunities to express who you already are. Don't overthink the smile. Don't chase its meaning. Be the man who can meet it without urgency, without hesitation, without the need to turn it into something bigger than it is. That is the paradox. When you stop trying to make something happen, you become the kind of man things naturally happen around. This is the essence of powerful psychology tricks that most men overlook. This is where female psychology becomes less mysterious and more intuitive. This is how to fall in love, not by forcing connection, but by allowing it to unfold in its own rhythm. So next time it happens, don't break the moment. Don't shrink from it. Don't rush past it. Hold your ground. Stay present. Let the silence speak. Because in that silence, more is being said than you think, and the man who understands that will always stand apart. If you felt that, then understand this. Most men lose the moment not because they lack value, but because they react instead of remain. They rush, they overthink, they close the space that was quietly opening for them. Don't do that. Hold your ground. Stay present. Let the moment breathe. Because that silent test isn't about impressing, it's about who can remain steady without needing to prove anything. And that is where real power begins. Now, if you're ready to step into that level of calm, controlled presence, comment this below. I stay calm, I observe, and I let the moment come to me. 8. Recognition, not admiration. Recognition, not admiration, that is the line most men never cross, because they're still trying to be seen instead of being understood. Listen carefully. Admiration is loud, temporary, and often tied to performance. Recognition is quiet, deep, and rooted in truth. When a younger woman smiles at you, she is not necessarily impressed. She is not measuring your looks, your money, or your status the way you think. She is sensing something far more rare. She is recognizing resolution. And that is what separates a man who tries to attract women from a man who naturally does it without effort. A high-value man does not chase admiration. He embodies clarity. He walks into a room already decided about who he is. That is masculine energy at its most refined form. No noise. No proving. No unnecessary movement. Just presence. Recognition is subtle. It doesn't ask for attention, and it doesn't need validation. It simply exists. And when a woman encounters it, she feels it before she understands it. Think about this. Most people are still negotiating with themselves every single day. They second-guess their choices. They adjust their values depending on who they are around. They hesitate. They seek approval. But you, if you've done the inner work, you don't move like that anymore. Your decisions are already made. Your standards are already set. Your emotional debts? Already paid. That is what she recognizes. Not your age, not your appearance, not your achievements. She recognizes that you are no longer in conflict with yourself. And that creates a calm, grounded masculine energy that quietly draws people in. Don't underestimate this. Don't dismiss it as coincidence. Be aware of it. Because this is where many men make a mistake. They feel that smile and immediately try to earn more of it. They shift. They perform. They start talking too much, trying to impress, trying to hold on to the moment. Don't do that. That is the fastest way to break the very thing that created the connection in the first place. Remember, she didn't smile because you were trying. She smiled because you weren't. That is the paradox. A high-value man attracts women not by effort, but by alignment. Not by chasing, but by standing still in his own truth. Be the man who no longer auditions for life. That is the shift. That is the turning point. When you stop trying to prove your worth, you begin to embody it. And people feel that immediately, especially women who are emotionally perceptive. They may not be able to explain it in words, but they recognize it. They feel safe around it. They feel curious about it. Why? Because in a world full of uncertainty and constant self-doubt, a man who is settled within himself becomes rare. And rarity attracts attention without asking for it. That is real masculine energy. You must understand this deeply. Attraction is not always about excitement. Sometimes it is about relief. Relief from pressure. Relief from chaos. Relief from emotional instability. When a younger woman smiles at you, she may be responding to that sense of ease you carry. You are not pulling energy from her. You are not trying to extract anything. You are simply present. And that presence feels different. It feels clean. It feels grounded. That is why a high-value man doesn't need tricks to attract women. His entire way of being becomes the signal. Don't try to manufacture this. You can't fake resolution. You can't pretend to be settled if you are still divided inside. The work must be real. You must face your doubts. You must make your decisions. You must stop negotiating with yourself. That is the path. And once you walk it, everything changes. Your posture changes. Your tone changes. Your timing changes. You become slower, more deliberate, less reactive, more intentional. And without saying a word, you communicate something powerful. I know who I am. That is what she recognizes. Not your past, not your future, but your present certainty. And that recognition creates that small, quiet smile. A moment that many men misunderstand, But a high-value man understands completely. He doesn't chase it. He doesn't question it. He simply allows it. Because he knows it's not about winning her attention. It's about maintaining his alignment. And from that place, everything else follows naturally. 9. Authority and presence. Authority and presence. Understand this clearly because most men miss it. That smile you notice is not random, and it is not shallow attraction. It is recognition. Not of status, not of surface charm, but of something deeper, authority. Not control, not force. Authority, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't announce itself, doesn't perform, doesn't explain. As Marcus Aurelius once said, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That is exactly the energy being felt. You are not trying to prove anything. You are not rushing to impress. You are standing in your place, fully grounded, fully present. And that presence is rare. In today's world, younger women are constantly surrounded by noise, men reacting too quickly, speaking too much, revealing intentions before they've even built substance. Everything is fast, exposed, and often uncertain. Then you arrive, carrying something different. You are composed. You are measured. You are not chasing the moment, and you are not avoiding it either. You simply exist in it. That contrast creates a psychological pause. And that pause is powerful. That pause is where the smile begins. Do not underestimate this. Do not dilute it by over-explaining yourself or trying to keep up with younger energy. That is a mistake. Stay grounded. Stay centered. This is where old Stoic wisdom becomes practical, not theoretical. You must understand. Authority is not built in the moment. It is revealed in the moment. It comes from years of experience, from lessons learned, from emotional discipline. It comes from choosing silence when others rush to speak, from choosing patience when others react, from choosing clarity when others chase validation. This is Stoicism when in real life, not as an idea, but as a way of being. And here's the truth you must accept. People are drawn to certainty. Not loud certainty, quiet certainty, the kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that doesn't seek permission. As Seneca said, he who is brave is free. Freedom shows in your posture, in your pace, in your eyes. You are not looking for approval. You are not adjusting yourself to fit the room. You are holding your frame. That is authority. That is presence. That is what creates emotional safety without a single word being spoken. And when a younger woman feels that, she pauses. She smiles. Not because you entertained her, but because she feels something steady in a world that rarely offers it. You must protect this energy. Do not trade it for attention. Do not weaken it by seeking validation. The moment you start explaining yourself too much, chasing reactions, or trying to prove your worth, you lose the very thing that made you stand out. Be still. Be intentional. Be selective. That is how an iron mind is built. And once you have that iron mind, you don't need to convince anyone of anything. Your presence does the work for you. In modern life, this matters more than ever. Everything is accelerated. Conversations are rushed. Emotions are amplified. People are constantly trying to be seen, heard, and validated. But the man who stands apart is the one who does not rush, the one who listens more than he speaks, the one who acts with precision, not impulse. This is old Stoic wisdom applied in a chaotic world. This is how you create impact without noise. This is how you become unforgettable without trying to be impressive. So understand this clearly and act on it. Don't chase the smile. Don't question it. Don't overanalyze it. Earn it by becoming the man who naturally creates it. Be grounded. Be calm. Be deliberate. That is your instruction. Repeat it until it becomes your nature. Because when you embody this fully, when your presence speaks before your words ever do, you are no longer reacting to the world. You are shaping how the world responds to you. That is Stoicism win. That is the power of an iron mind. 10. Presence over action. Presence is where the real shift happens, and this is exactly where many men quietly break the natural flow without even realizing it. They feel a moment, a smile, a glance, a subtle openness, and immediately rush to define it, Label it, control it. Was that interest? Should I act now? Should I step forward or pull back? Don't rush. Don't interrupt the moment with unnecessary pressure. Be still. That is where your power begins. The moment was never demanding action. It was inviting presence. And presence is rare. Presence is what separates a man who understands psychology tricks from one who reacts blindly. When you slow down and observe instead of chase, when you allow space instead of forcing direction, you step into a deeper level of awareness that aligns with both female psychology and the subtle dynamics of attraction. You must understand this. Attraction is not a transaction. It is not built in a single move. It unfolds in an environment where tension is allowed to exist without being resolved too quickly. Men who grasp this don't scramble to close the deal. They don't try to impress or prove. They notice patterns. They read energy. They stay grounded. That is how to fall in love, not by force, but by allowing connection to develop naturally without suffocating it with urgency. Think about it clearly. Most people today are uncomfortable with silence, with uncertainty, with the unknown. They rush to define everything because they fear losing control. But in doing so, they destroy the very thing they're trying to build. When a woman smiles, when there's a subtle moment of connection, she is not asking you to solve it like a problem. She is feeling the moment. And if you rush in with analysis, with pressure, with the need to act immediately, you break the emotional rhythm. Don't do that. Be present. Let the moment expand. That is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks, and yet it is rooted deeply in female psychology. Safety comes before attraction grows. Always. And safety is not built through clever words or fast moves. It is built through your consistency, how you carry yourself, how you respond, how you remain unchanged by fleeting signals. You must train yourself to resist the urge to react instantly. That urge is not strength. It is impatience disguised as confidence. Real confidence is quiet. It waits. It observes. It understands that not every moment needs to be acted upon. When you hold that space, when you don't collapse into overthinking or overacting, you create something rare, emotional ease. And emotional ease is deeply attractive. This is how to fall in love in a way that feels natural and lasting, not forced and temporary. You are not chasing a result. You are allowing a connection to reveal itself. That is a completely different mindset. Look deeper. When you stay present, you signal something powerful without saying a word. I am comfortable with myself. I don't need to rush. I don't need to prove. That signal aligns perfectly with female psychology, where emotional safety and stability are often felt before anything else develops. And here's the truth most men miss. Attraction often forms after safety, not before it. If she feels rushed, evaluated, or pressured, the moment tightens. But if she feels space, calm, and consistency, the moment opens. That opening is where real connection begins. So don't chase outcomes. Don't try to control every interaction. Be the man who understands that not everything needs to be defined immediately. Let moments breathe. Let tension exist. Let curiosity build. These are not passive actions. They are deliberate choices rooted in awareness. They are advanced psychology tricks that few men truly master, yet they align perfectly with how to fall in love in a grounded, authentic way. You must remember this clearly. Presence is not doing nothing. It is doing exactly what is needed and nothing more. It is restraint. It is awareness. It is control over your impulses. And in a world full of noise, urgency, and constant reaction, that kind of presence stands out more than any clever line or bold move ever could. Stay grounded. Stay aware. Let the moment come to you. That is where the real dynamic lives. All right, my friend, if you've stayed with me until this moment, then you're already seeing something most men overlook. Here's the truth, simple and real. Not every smile needs to be analyzed, chased, or turned into something bigger. Sometimes that smile exists because you've become a man who is easy to be around. No pressure, no performance, no need to prove anything. And in today's world, that kind of presence is rare. So don't rush it. Don't question it. Just be that man. A man who stands calm. A man who knows his value without needing to announce it. A man who allows moments to happen naturally instead of forcing them. That's where your real strength is. Remember this: when you stop trying to impress, you start to connect. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. That quiet confidence, people feel it before you even say a word. So take this with you. Be steady, be genuine, and let your presence do the work. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.